folks, grab a seat and pour your drink neat as Whiskers and Whiskeys present Tales of the Trophies, the Big Ten's greatest rivalries. I'm Mike, back with EJ and Joe. How we doing, boys?
Oh, we're doing really good. Real excited for today.
We had some good games, learned a lot about some teams, and we had some movement in the rankings this week.
We sure did, and I am super excited for today's episode. I want to call out off the top, this is a trophy that I am familiar with, but I've not talked about with you guys. You both decked out in Sparty green and Michigan blue. I love it. Let's get into it, boys.
Yeah, buckle down, listeners, because this is going to be a good one, a long one, and definitely one of our favorites.
All right, should we get into the drink?
Let's do it. What are we drinking today, Joe?
All right, so in typical Michigan fashion, trying to keep it neutral between these two teams, we are going with the Detroit Old Fashioned. And this drink is super simple to make. It took me all of, EJ, like 2.5 minutes to make this?
Yep.
So this one, it's a Michigan spin on the traditional Old Fashioned. So you've got simple syrup. You can also use sugar cubes, a couple dashes of bitters, orange peel to top it off, and you want to get that rim job going, go for it. And maraschino cherries, 2 ounces of bourbon or rye. We went with the rye this week. And then the Michigan factor is the 2 ounces of Werner's ginger ale.
Tell me a little bit about Werner's ginger ale. Like, because that's when I looked at the recipe, I was like, Werner's, what the hell is that? And that's just ginger ale. But is it based in Michigan? Is that like the big thing?
Yeah. So Werner's, if you ask anyone from Michigan, or if you know anyone from Michigan, they are probably pretty particular about their ginger ale. Werner's is the way to go. So I've got a few fun facts for you guys actually here.
Ooh, Joe with the fun facts.
I was going to say, I know some history on this, so I'm curious just off the top of my head. So I'm curious to see if I'm right or if I've just been lying to myself.
Let me break out the old notebook here. All right. So like I said, Werner's is a staple of Michigan. It's also a compliment for this drink. It's a compliment of like a whiskey ginger kind of concept with the traditional old fashioned. So any guesses on when Werner's was first commercially available?
Yes. Mike, you can start.
Let's start with Mike, because I think EJ probably got a good grasp on it from the cans.
Like first commercially available, like when they're like distributing it wide, or just like distributing it within?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's all around the same time frame.
I don't know, man. Like 1951.
I'm going to go with 8. It's 18. I want to say it's 1838.
No, it was created in 1866, but first produced commercially in 1880.
Wow.
80. Okay.
So a little background. Werner's was created by James Werner, Detroit pharmacist.
Doc.
Yep. And it was pretty like a family brand for most of the time, for years, for a while. And then they originally did everything in-house. It was all Michigan based. And then it was sold a few times in the 60s, 1966, when it first was sold. And then it kind of bounced around between commercial distributors and producers. So it's currently owned by Keurig Dr. Pepper. And obviously you probably know those names. So they have 10 or 15 different products they produce, but it is still produced. I didn't
realize that Keurig and Dr. Pepper were like
together. I think
with
some of those you just get random drink producers or manufacturers, if you want to call them that kind of combine and they acquire each other, and then just gets kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But anyways, so this is Keurig Dr. Pepper, and it is still produced in Holland, Michigan. So
nice.
Yep.
Which is where New Holland Brewing Company is.
It's true. We might see them might see them in a couple of weeks. So I got one more fun fact for you guys, or one question. There is a mascot on the can or bottle for Werner's. Does anybody or either of you guys know, 1, what it is, and 2, what the name of that being is?
I'm gonna guess it's a troll named after the folks who live in the hand part of
southern
Michigan. Yeah.
I know it's a guy with a really ginger and huge beard and a nice little yodeler hat looking thing.
What kind of hat?
Like a yodeler hat, like a
what word are you saying?
Yodeling. Yodeler.
Yodeler.
Yes.
You could not get that word out.
Is yodeler even a word? I don't even know. But you know what I'm talking about.
Now I do.
Yeah, I don't know his name though.
Okay, so it is a gnome.
Oh, okay.
and his name is Woody.
Woody, no.
I don't have any further background on why, but his name's Woody.
Maybe named after Woody Hayes. Who knows?
And I will
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. I will say that I personally love Werner's. Obviously, it's my go-to ginger ale. I will say though that it is very, very, very different than other like Seagrams and Canada Dry. And a lot of people speculate that it's not really a ginger ale, but they can eat one because it is.
So
I
I'm
love
not
ginger ale, so I'm gonna have to try it because I'm a big. I also like ginger seltzer water. Wegmans makes it delicious.
So this thing's sweating here, so I think we need to get it going.
Yeah.
So cheers.
Cheers, boys.
That does taste good.
It's not too heavy on the ginger ale. It kind of takes the flavor of like a ginger whiskey ginger for me.
I mean, of all the like things that you can, I like obviously my whiskey straight, but like ginger goes really well. Like whether it's ginger beer, ginger ale, whatever. Like I'll do my whiskey with something ginger if I have to. You know.
For the listeners,
Oh, that was like beautiful, Joe.
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought it was because Werner's is definitely sweeter, so it's not like a Canada Dry that's pretty dry.
I probably wouldn't like it then.
Yeah, it's on the sweeter end, and so
I'm sweet enough.
I was surprised that that sweetness doesn't really come across here. It's still good, has a good nice whiskey taste to it.
So we also the last kind of thing I have for you guys is we did, it's kind of sweating for us. So I went ahead and got EJ a coaster. I don't know if you want to show that on screen, but
sure. So everyone knows we try to do this all together as much as possible. And right now I am over at Joe's house, so naturally he got me a nice little Michigan coaster to use.
And cheers.
I did not know that you were over there. I had to move today. If people are watching on the YouTube, I am a sweaty mess. I haven't showered yet. I had to help someone move.
You helped someone move. You didn't.
I messed up. Yeah, I didn't move. I helped someone move. I messed up my fingers trying to move a treadmill, which was sucked. Try taking a treadmill out of a Baltimore basement. Not fun.
I was gonna say if you moved today, like you did a really good job getting those pictures up and getting everything set up for us.
The house looks very similar to
podcast
right?
first.
All right, guys, why don't we get to our college football recap here,
which we were for together yesterday.
Yes,
sir.
For yesterday. So why don't we start with some statement wins here? And I mean, we'll just start off on point and kind of on topic here. Harbaugh finally got the monkey off his back, and Michigan had a very convincing win at Wisconsin.
It was a strong win.
The wrong team was favored in that game. I mean, I said it to you guys going in the week, like the wrong team was absolutely favored in that game. But yeah, I watched part of that game because I was mainly spending the time during the noon game watching Arkansas and Georgia, which we'll get to next. But yeah, super convincing win. It was, I mean, Joe, give your thoughts, man, as the fan.
Yeah. So I was happy. I was happy that they finally had a passing game. You know, they had, I don't know the stats. I don't know how many yards they had passing, but it was enough to prove that they can do it. The run game, I wasn't really there because it was like, give Wisconsin defense credit. You know what you're getting there. They were solid. So Michigan came through. They were able to find other ways to score. So that was definitely good to see. I was happy with the win. It wasn't like the Rutgers win where you're going home, you won, but you're still going home with your head down. And yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. I know they bumped up in the rankings this week. So
I don't think that you need to hang your head after that Rutgers. I mean, we talked about like Rutgers covers like nobody's business, and they in this past weekend, obviously.
Yeah, and that's a statement win there. And I mentioned that last week. I think the OSU was definitely out for blood there, just to get a point. So
yeah,
and I think it'll show in the next coming weeks what's really going on with each of these teams. So
yeah, and Joe, I mean, one thing you mentioned is that like the passing game, you guys finally had one. Seems like you did enough. That backup that you guys have, I mean, only a matter of time till that kid's starting, right? Like, I mean,
I hope so.
Think it's coming this season or what?
Well, you never know. Like we've mentioned a few times with injuries and stuff. I know EJ, we got into this weekend a little bit. I think with the transfer portal, it's very important to keep 5-star, really good recruits happy now that they can leave. So I think it's important to keep them in there. not keep him in, but like get him playing time when you can. And when you're winning, I think all is well, right? So if you're winning, it's a little bit different story. So if they start losing and he gets in, that could be a way to keep him and hold on to him, because you don't know if he's going to even stay for 4 years.
And that's the thing. Like, do you want him if you go down? Like, let's say you're in a close one against Ohio State, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you pull the trigger and put him in them? Because that's not good for him either. Because like if it goes well, great. But like if it doesn't, like that does something that gets confidence too. So and it's a really lose-lose situation.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors. I mean, what if Cade McNamara throws 3 picks and it's still a 1-possession game?
Mm-hmm.
You got to put him in and try and win this game. So, or if he gets hurt, I mean, there's so many different factors that could play in, and you never know. So I think it's good to keep him ready, keep him used to being on the field with the ball in his hands. So
exactly.
And he, I mean, whether people want to admit it or not, he definitely is a pass first player. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see how he does. I mean, he'll do well, I think, but if he gets more playing time as we go on, or if he has to play, that's probably a better question.
I thought, I mean, one other thing about this game, like the biggest thing came out of it for me and the whole like slate for the Big Ten East this Saturday, like Michigan looked really good. Like they were like doing the jump around, like they were getting into it. That was awesome.
I have that in my notes too. Like that was pretty cool. Even the players, like I don't know if they usually get into it. If I haven't really paid too much attention to it, but with the players, they like game was stopped. I even saw today they were on Instagram. The Michigan football team Instagram posted players they were on the sideline jumping around with the players. It's pretty cool. So it's just fun to see. I mean, teams aside, like you're not everyone's just having fun. I think we mentioned that on Saturday when we were watching. So
yeah. And it's, so with Michigan with a great win, I thought Penn State looked really good. Ohio State obviously came out and stomped on Rutgers. And I mean, Penn State, their win was convincing. Like they did what they had to do against Indiana. Sure. And Sparty, I thought that they did what they had to do against Western Kentucky. Like, that they're going to score, but like Sparty, I mean, they put up a lot of points for Michigan State, I feel like, and they did what they had to do against that team. So I feel like that those are 4 teams that did what they had to do. And I think that the East race is going to be really tight because you still can't count out Rutgers, even though Maryland had we'll get to that, but like Rutgers, Maryland, and Indiana, like, are still a threat. I think that the Big Ten East is definitely going to be maybe the most exciting race of all. I
think those couple that you just mentioned are the wild cards for sure. Like, because they could upset a team and knock them out of contention.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's what they're going to play. Spoiler, they're definitely going to catch someone upcoming. So hopefully it's not our
one
teams,
of our teams,
right? But it's going to happen. Those teams are very solid. The worst teams are in the West, so there's really no gimmies in the East. Yeah. The only other thing I'll just say about that game was I know Michigan fans, I'd say like older Michigan fans, boosters and stuff, they really are traditionalists and don't really like to mess with too many things. But I thought them going with the blue pants and the white jerseys, I thought that looked really sharp. It was actually a subtle change, nothing crazy, but I thought it looked really nice.
Yeah, they look slick.
Yeah, it was good to see. I think also I read in one of the fan accounts or something before the game that I read that they were going to do that. And I think the players had some say and kind of told whoever, I don't know who's in charge of it, if it's Harbaugh or if it's someone else, but they kind of requested to wear that combo.
See, where I just sit with that in that conversation is like, I know there's definitely schools and even NFL teams that have very traditional, good looking jerseys. But like, this is a new crop of kids, and that only just helps your recruiting if you can customize something. It doesn't have to be like Michigan State's ugly highlighter lime green jerseys. It doesn't have to go crazy, but I'm all about changing it up every once in a while and having something different.
What could feel good, play good is right. Like one of the fundamental rules of the universe. Like it's the case, no matter what it is. No matter what it is, sports, work, whatever you're doing, what could feel good, baby.
I always wonder how many players go to Oregon just for the swag that Nike provides them. Like I'm always interested to see what they're wearing each week. Cause it's going to be something cool. So
that was the original NIL.
As the kids say, right, they're getting the fit off every week. So the Ducks.
All right.
That's fire.
Let's get to the next game here. This was number 8 Arkansas at number 2 Georgia. And all I gotta say is
woof, 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 woof.
Can't play the pig call this week.
So the crazy thing is, Joe, I don't know, you had already left, and Mike and I caught it at the bottom of the screen and couldn't believe it, so we had to Google it. But like, so Georgia wins 37-0, and their quarterback only threw for 72 yards. He only threw it 11 times. Their team as a whole rushed for about, I think it was like 296, but no one had more than like 60 yards rushing,
which is crazy because Zeus
it's like the most
special
impossible thing. I mean, they did block a punt and score.
Yeah,
I think they
put up some
just had
points.
short field the entire game.
I missed the third quarter because I was driving to your house, AJ. But like, if you would have told me, like, I could have sworn Zeus would have had over 100 yards the way he was running that first half. But I told you guys this yesterday. I was planning on not betting the game. I saw Stetson Bennett the fourth throw one pass, and then I immediately put more money into my sportsbook account and bet Georgia with the points. I gave the points because it was that, like, I wanted to see how Stetson looked, but like, I also watched Game Day, and Herb Street did that special with the Georgia. Georgia has some dogs on defense.
Yeah.
Like the way that they, like, that was a really cool special. If you have that option to go back and watch it, do it. It was just cool, man. It was just Herbie sitting down with the guys, and like their connectivity as a defense, it's something special. And I think that, you know, EJ, I know that you were saying that, like, how good is Georgia's defense because Clemson's offense kind of stinks. I think we saw, like, I mean, Arkansas, when they get shut out like that, I mean, I know they're not in Texas anymore, but
no, I had it flipped, and I'm still coming away with the same question. Is I think I was comfortable with Georgia's defense, but I don't know what Georgia's offense is still. I thought I would come away because I was saying Clemson obviously has not looked good. They won by 6 against Boston College this weekend. Not great at home. I just wasn't sure how good Georgia's offense was, and I really still don't know.
Well, who's officially their starter? Like, if everyone's healthy,
it'll be
Daniel,
is he?
Yeah, I mean,
he'll get a shot. This is going to be like McNamara and
got a little
McCarthy.
Michigan fiasco.
Yeah, it's
well, even worse because Stetson came in, right? And you know, he won that game,
and yeah, that could very well be what happens.
Well, he played another game in that the
like 2
FCS
weeks ago
game, that they played.
But that could very well be going back to Michigan. What happens if McNamara gets hurt or if he plays like shit? They could bring him in and you could lose it's a battle. So it's a competition each week. So
yeah, I mean, if
I think
I'm
that's the same for
Herbie,
Georgia.
If I'm Herbie, like JT Daniels, I feel like I don't know how. It's no offense to JT Daniels, he's had a tough career. I don't know how much, like, if he got benched, I don't know what he would do. I don't know if he'd like shrink or if he would, like, if he got a moment again, he'd come out and play better.
Man, I don't think you can get any smaller than him. Isn't he like 5'11", like 165 pounds wet? He's a pretty small dude.
Is in what year is he? Is he transfer? Could he enter the portal?
Yeah, he transferred.
He's draft eligible. I know that people are wondering whether he would go pro if he'd be good enough.
I don't know if he even transferred, if he graduated. I don't know.
So I don't know if you guys want to shift into the next game, but I've got one kind of on the same topic where a quarterback was benched last week. Our boy Bo Nix came back. This dude played like his hair was on fire this week. I couldn't stop watching that game. I was trying to flip between games and I couldn't stop watching him. Like, this dude, he was all over the place. I don't know if you guys saw his scrambles, and he looked like Russell Wilson, like getting out of tackles, breaking tackles, running for, he rushed for 1 or maybe 2 touchdowns, breaking through tackles. It was impressive.
That's the thing about Bo Nix. You just never know what Bo Nix you're going to get. So
yeah, he was a man on a mission.
He's gonna have a chance to really prove himself next week, and we'll kind of get to that in a little bit on who Auburn has coming to town. But another statement win here was number 7 Cincinnati went to number 8 Notre Dame and put their name in the little baggie there to go to the playoffs. So now it's up to them to not blow it and lose to a conference foe.
Indiana.
Shout out to poor Bridget.
One of these.
Shout out poor Bridget. Yeah. That game was, I mean, it was exactly what Cincinnati needed to do. They need to come in and have a convincing win. And I thought that they did that, like they came in, there was really no point even at the end of the game. Notre Dame had a chance. So like, I never felt like Notre Dame's going to win this game.
No, I will say it was really close, though. I feel like for the longest time, no one really separated. And then when Cincinnati finally did, they didn't let them back in the game. So, I mean, they played a Notre Dame team that was playing well. I mean, I don't think this is Notre Dame's one of the best in the top 10 right now, but it doesn't matter, right? They got their marquee win. Hopefully they don't get left out. There's still a decent chance they do, even if they go undefeated, but hopefully it works out for them because I'd enjoy seeing them play in the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, because when you look at, the SEC, like if Georgia and Bama are undefeated going to the title game, you have to think they both get in. Like, honestly, if it's whoever comes out of the Big Ten East, like if you have a team that's undefeated, a team with one loss, and they lost to the team that won defeat, it's like, man, I would have a hard time. Like we say that with the SEC all the time. Like Bama got in whenever they didn't even go to the SEC championship, and they have win the damn thing a couple years ago
because of the name. I mean, if you're looking at a one-loss Ohio State and an undefeated Cincinnati, I'm right now not confident that the committee is going to do the right thing.
Well, I think that just begs for the conversation of, is it time to expand the playoff? And obviously that's been the conversation for a few years now, but then that just, it gives the reason why it should happen, because then justifies everything. If you can put Cincinnati in, let them play in, let them get in, let them play. If they win, they move on.
My biggest takeaway for Cincinnati from this game was that I really like their jerseys. Like, I didn't realize how much I like them. It's clean.
Yeah, we had a conversation about that.
Yeah,
they look clean.
Again, it's just some of these teams are doing well when it comes to that. It sounds like such a silly thing to do, but just to have a couple of good-looking things that maybe aren't what you traditionally have done, and people notice, kids notice, recruits notice.
Yeah, for sure.
But sometimes you have the traditional look, and sometimes that's all you need. Like in Tuscaloosa, they have a very traditional look, and they put a very traditional ass whooping on Ole Miss this week. And I have to say, really, this one was all on Ole Miss. Like, if they just would have, their refusal, flat out refusal.
It wasn't on Ole Miss. It was on one man in particular, the smartest man in the room, Mr. Lane Kiffin.
Say his name, yeah. I mean,
Mr. Lane Kiffin there, he just made some inexcusable coaching decisions early.
Just
and
punt the ball,
and it snowballed.
Yeah, you're in your own 20. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
the first couple fourth downs I'm okay with. You were at midfield or in plus territory.
Yeah,
I'm fine with those. But
when
the one that at your own 25, 30-yard line,
when you're in the red zone, your own red zone, it's time to punt.
Yeah. He just made it was already a tough game that already started off not how they wanted. And then that was just like really the shift where you just knew the game was over.
Well, I think that's just playing Alabama. You just can't make the margin for error is that much smaller. Yeah. And I think a couple weeks ago, Florida was able to try and weather that storm, and it didn't work out for them. But it just shows every week you have to bring your best when you're playing Alabama. And we talked about this week after week. They're the clear front runner, and they've been at one the whole first 4 weeks. So it's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah. Going to be tough to beat.
Yeah. It's just a shame. I was really looking forward to watching Ole Miss sling it. And it's not even like they Corral turned the ball over and they did it themselves. It was literally a couple of bad coaching decisions early, and then that was it. And then it was just like, not a real game after that.
I was nervous going into it, but play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
And the other
I have to say about that.
The other blowout game that we all watched too, a Friday night game, was number 5 Iowa going to undefeated Maryland night game. And Iowa's defense turned the ball over again 4 times in the first half, 5 times.
Yeah,
in the first half.
They created
5
turnovers,
interceptions by Talia, 7 turnovers total. Like, terrible. I mean,
I was live betting that one, or trying to, and every time I went to try and make a bet, it was just another pick. I'm like, what is this dude? Like, this is Tua's brother? Like, and granted, I haven't watched a lot of them, so I was expecting more from what I've heard and what I've read. I didn't end up betting it because I was like, this is getting out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could see
actually,
the talent.
I take it back. I did bet that. I think I got Iowa minus like 23 and ended up cashing out.
Oh, yeah.
Lights were a little too bright for Maryland.
I mean, Talia, he had some throws where you could see the arm strength. You can see it. Obviously, they had not obviously, but throughout the game on the kick return, they had their top receiver who returns kicks have a gruesome leg injury, much to Joe's dismay.
I can't do those.
It took them out of the game.
I will, if I watched that, I saw the first play of it. And if I would have watched it again, I probably would have thrown up.
Yeah.
Like Anna was watching it and she was like, "Oh, what's going on?" And she loves that stuff. I cannot watch it again. Like
she loves it. She likes
well, I mean, she doesn't like get enjoyment from it, but she thinks it's interesting. Yeah. That and believe it or not, that and MMA fighting she loves. Yeah.
Yeah, it was I don't know. It's just one of those things where Talia just made some really bad decisions, some young like you could just see he was still a very young quarterback, and then it just snowballed. It was like once he made one mistake, he made a second one. And again, like Iowa is just solid. Their defense is elite and their offense does enough to not turn the ball over, and they capitalize on turnovers. And again, this next week, it's going to be the Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other. Two defenses, two elite defenses, and two okay offenses play each other in Iowa and Penn State. But we can kind of preview that in a little bit too.
Yeah, they're not a flashy team by any means. I mean, they were up 20 something points the whole game, and it just wasn't like, I don't know. When you watch certain teams, I feel like you get kind of excited and they're fun to watch them go up by that much. I couldn't even stay awake for that game. Iowa's just not a fun game to watch, but they're good. I mean, they win. They do what they need to do to win. And whether that's playing good defense or running the ball, so be it.
They're effective, man. They're effective.
Yep. All right. So why don't we talk about a few upsets here? There's quite a few. Let's probably only really have strong opinions on this first one, but I'm going to let the listeners know what our episode notes, like our show notes, look like here. So it was number 3 Oregon at their rival Stanford, and I have 3 notes here. First one is total utter bullshit. Second one is more bullshit, and the third is finally bullshit.
I mean, it was abhorrent to watch. Like we were sitting, I could not believe the officiating at the end of that game. It was there was so many calls, like the targeting call on Thibodeau was garbage. I thought that at the end of the game, like the pass interference call, garbage.
So it was the listeners,
garbage.
So this all happened. Stanford was down 7. They started at their own 2-yard line with about a minute left in the game. And while they did get out of the, deep in their zone by themselves, it ended up turning into, like Mike said, a Thibodeau ejection 15-yard penalty. And then it was another pass interference that moved them even closer. And then it all came down to a 4th and goal. And they called pass interference, which was horrible.
The most ridiculous pass interference call I've ever seen. Like
it was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad. So then the next play, Stanford scores a touchdown.
And they were letting them play. They were letting them like jockey for position in the end zone all game. And then they called that pass interference call.
It was rough.
I mean, and this, folks, I bet Stanford plus 8.5, and I bet Stanford money line. And I am still sick to my stomach at the result of that game. It was abhorrent.
And as a Lions fan, I'm very used to getting screwed by refs, but this was genuinely, this was genuinely like a 45 to 50, maybe 55 penalty yards on the final drive to essentially let Stanford tie the game. It was insane. Yeah,
so, and to give people a little bit of background on kind of the timeline of all of this, we were over at EJ's watching these games. We left. By the time I got home, 15 minutes, this had all unfolded because when I left, Oregon was up, I believe. Mm-hmm. And by the time I got back, we walked in the door, I put the game on, and Stanford had scored. And you guys were like, this is bullshit. Like, what just happened? And I was like, oh, it looks like they scored. Like, what's the problem? I didn't realize there was a field length of penalties that got them there. So
it was terrible.
It's pretty quick.
All right. Some of these other upsets here. Arizona State at number 20 UCLA. I mean, Arizona State absolutely killed them, and now they're in control of their own destiny in the Pac-12 South. I know Arizona State wins this time, of course.
Mm-hmm. When we don't have money on them.
I almost live bet it, but I fell asleep. Texas A&M lost to Mississippi State, which totally takes the lure of their next game against Alabama, completely out of it. They suck. Like I've
I
been
don't know
saying,
what
and
happened
this
with that
confirms
team.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was wrong. I thought Mississippi State was going to do something. I was totally wrong.
You mean A&M?
Oh, yeah. Right, A&M. But the team that I was right about, and I think a lot of people were on this because I know that there was like Kentucky was the hot pick to cover.
Yep.
And
well, they covered.
I mean, considering that they lost like they were lost 33 of the past 34, and the last win was what 2016 or 2018.
Yeah, it was a few years ago.
A couple years ago.
Yeah. And then I mean, they look really good. That was a fun game to watch at the end there.
Great defense. They scored on special teams, which is awesome, and then did what they needed to at the very end and got that last touchdown to seal it. Good on Kentucky. And then the last one, Fresno State, unfortunately took mine and Mike's money by losing to Hawaii at Hawaii. I watched a lot of that game, and there was a good turning point where I thought Fresno was they took the lead. It looked good, went to bed and woke up disappointed. So,
yeah. And, I mean, it's a tough road trip to make, but I mean, Fresno State is a good team, but again, that's just a tough road trip. I mean, it's what it is. So
for sure. And then why don't we get some betting shout outs here? So Doyle, we kind of talked about this game earlier, but Doyle wanted to make it known that he did not agree with Joe taking Florida. So he then decided to take Kentucky and the points, and he won his bet.
He proceeded to text me while the game was kind of falling apart for Florida. Oh yeah.
You should have asked him how Arkansas went for him.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we were texting through. Even he was a fair sport with it. So it was a good game though. It honestly, like after that showing against Alabama, I was all over Florida and I was like, this team is solid. Yeah. Didn't go well.
Not on the road. That's why you always have to be careful, right?
Yeah.
Teams are much better at home than on the road. And
I think Doyle's got some kind of inside information. He lives in Florida. He's not necessarily, I mean, he's in Miami. So I think he's making a little trip north to
he goes up to Gainesville and spies on them when they practice.
He saw some injuries. He saw something.
Yeah, he took that picture or that video of Urban Meyer getting himself into some trouble.
I think that was in Columbus, actually.
We have to wait on.
It was.
We'll get we'll get to that.
Yes.
We have to wait till after the break. Then we'll absolutely get to that.
All right. So quickly right here before the break, why don't we do like we did last week, lightning round. What games are we looking forward to this weekend? Let's go. First one. Mike, do you want to hit this?
I absolutely do. Yeah, the Red River rivalry. Number 6 and number 21, number 6 Oklahoma and number 21 Texas. That's the updated rankings, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that we'll see. Is Texas back? God, I hope so. I think it'll happen. I'll take the next one too, because I think that anytime you go to Auburn, it's tough place to play, in Georgia and Auburn, heated rivalries. So, I mean, we'll see. Like, this is going to be a tough matchup. And like, to what we were talking about, like which Bo Nix are we going to get? So
he looked like he had his mojo back. We'll see if he has.
Yeah, he was all fired up. So.
And then we talked about this next one here, like Arkansas and Ole Miss were definitely the trendy picks to have upsets this week, and they both got disappointed big time. So they're both going to be pissed off going in this game. And yeah, I mean, this is big. Like, this is for your season to kind of like stay on track. Like, they're just kind of like jockeying for position. Like, they're not going to win the West probably, but like, it's time to see.
I think everyone knew weeks before the season started they weren't going to win the West, but yes.
Well. Yeah,
no, it should be a good game. And then the final one, I assume this is going to be game day. I probably should have checked. If I had to put money, it's probably going to be this or the Red River rivalry. But you have number 4 Penn State going to number 3 Iowa, Kinnick Stadium. I mean, this is who keeps their playoff hopes alive. They're on opposite sides of the Big Ten, so they can still lose this and get to the Big Ten championship game. But ultimately, if they really want to make the playoffs, this is it.
And like I said before, I don't think this is going to be the most exciting game here.
Hammer the under.
What?
Hard. The under is going to be like 30.
Yeah, and it's at
I'll take the over.
It's at Beaver, right?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's no. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
no,
that'll be interesting then.
Now we get to see Penn State. Obviously, they had their big win at Wisconsin, and that's not looking like as big of a win.
Big win.
Wisconsin's good. They're a good team. now they get to prove it because Kinnick is going to be rocking. All those Hawkeye fans, they're
so
gonna be ready.
Iowa's favored by 2.5 right now. It's a 4 p.m. kick. I feel like move that game back to 7. Like that deserves a night game.
And also not to jump too far ahead here, but I know we'll probably talk about it a little bit. The rankings. I mean, Iowa popped in.
Yeah, number 3.
Yeah,
that's surprising.
So
it still kind of is what it is at this point, right?
Yeah,
like,
we'll see. It's gonna sort itself out. Yeah,
it always
this week it'll sort itself out. So
all right, and then the only upset alert we really have here is Notre Dame versus. I mean, there could be others, but this is the one we highlighted. Notre Dame is trying.
I have two more. I will
perfect.
say I'll go through those real quick. I think, and I'll just say, like I said, Notre Dame at Blacksburg gonna be a tough game. I think now after losing Cincinnati too, I think Notre Dame's gonna come out fired up. I still think.
Not the place I want to try and get a rebound at.
Not the place to get back on track.
Sure.
Nope.
And then I do think that Temple, like on the other end of the Notre Dame game, Temple's going to Cincinnati. The tough part is like Cincinnati was laser focused, right? And now it's like, all right, conference schedule.
They let their guard down.
Yeah, exactly. And Temple is no slouch. So
yeah.
And then the last one that I have is LSU Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky's 5-0. They're going to try, obviously to make a run at the SEC East. Like everyone's talking about Georgia, but you just beat Florida. You're so juiced up about that. Now you have LSU at home. Do they let their guard down a little bit? Either way, I think it's going to be an interesting game. I don't think LSU's that good. Like I feel like Kentucky should handle them.
Yeah, they didn't look great in that night game the other night.
No,
they haven't looked good since Joe Burrow left.
Sure.
So,
but Coach O's Tigers will surprise you. And I would not be shocked if this is a game that they at least close.
Yeah, but is Kentucky
close.
blue? Is that pansy blue?
I think that's a more masculine blue and Coach O's eyes.
Let's hope for the Wildcats it is pansy blue because the last time they played pansy blue.
If I were that Kentucky coach, I'd be putting that up in the locker room.
All right, guys. Why don't we take a quick break here, refresh our drinks, and we will be right back. All right. Welcome back, everyone. You guys got your drinks refreshed? I know I did.
Sure, buddy.
All right. Well, why don't we get into the episode then, the rest of the episode?
Why don't we?
Let's do it.
Oh, hold on.
Oh,
real quick.
Okay. Do we want to touch on Urban Meyer?
We have to. I got home last night, so we were all together. Joe left first, and then I left, and then I got home. I'm scrolling through Twitter, and I'm like, oh my! Like Urban Meyer's trending. I'm like, what's going on? What happened?
Yeah.
You think he quit or something?
Yeah.
Out on the town in his Ohio State pullover with a young blonde grinding up on him that is not Shelly Meyer.
You know what? It just hit me that they were on their bye week, right?
Well, they had the Thursday night game.
No.
Oh,
Yeah,
they played Thursday.
So he stayed in Ohio and hung out with people. But you know what? We were talking about this yesterday. Like,
oh yeah, it was in Cincinnati, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking about this yesterday. Okay. We said, what is it get? Like, he can't just quit Jacksonville and go to USC because that's gonna burn a bridge. But the genius that is Urban Meyer decides, okay, get in a scandal, take some time off, be with my family, refocus. And you know what? I have to step away from the NFL. I'm going to go to Southern California, much more relaxed climate. I'm going to go back to my roots move the family out to Southern California.
Yeah, I think we have a health scare coming soon.
Oh, yeah.
What I'm anticipating.
I think Urban Meyer's going to have a health scare when he goes home. I think Shelly doesn't play that game. She is jacked. She's diesel.
But if that's his plan is to get relocated or leave to go to USC, maybe she's in on it. Maybe it's
She did.
Yeah,
she quote tweeted the picture.
He deserved a boys' night out or something.
And he was wearing the
see, I just want to be surprised if they have like an arrangement or something, I mean, obviously as long
the Will
as
Smith thing,
as long as she's, getting the money. I mean, we already talked about this, but Dan Mullen's wife kisses players on the lips. So I think there's probably more than one set of like, very wealthy married couples like Will and Jada Pickett Smith that have arrangements and just kind of.
I'm going to go ahead and say that this is EJ's opinion here. This is
if you want to get wild, go over to the Clownder household.
Listen, all I know is if you guys look this up, and I recommend you do, he's getting grinded on by one girl, and then in another picture, a young girl, another college age, maybe mid-20s girl is resting her head on his shoulder in a picture.
That's the same girl.
Girl. I don't think so.
Same girl. The different girl posted a picture and said, "Who is this? He keeps hitting on me."
Yeah.
Also, this was going around everywhere, so that could have been doctored. It could have been someone who said,
"I choose
making fun of it."
I choose to believe.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I don't know.
That's just Ohio State for you.
I saw a couple follow-up photos for people that were like, for the people that are doubting whether this was Urban Meyer getting grinded on, it was definitely him. It was definitely not his wife. And if his wife is posting about having needed boys day, clearly she's not upset about it. So
there's also
no, she posted that before it even came out.
Yeah. And it wasn't a picture of him with any, there was a girl in the picture, but it wasn't.
That was before it even came out.
That was
I think you're onto something that she could be in on it, but
I don't know, guys.
Mystery podcast.
I wouldn't be surprised if his wife just didn't care, to be honest with you. But I wouldn't be surprised.
I think once the money gets involved to that point,
he's a very
I don't know.
famous person. He's a very famous person, very recognized.
Travels a lot,
especially in Ohio. I have a hard time believing he would make a mistake like that publicly.
It was also at his bar, I believe.
Are you serious? You don't think Urban Meyer's no? He's just a slime ball, dude. No, you're absolutely wrong. His wife definitely cares. He slime ball, dude.
I guess we'll see.
You know what you're not going to see Jim Harbaugh doing? That. He's at home with his chicken and milk.
Well, they don't serve milk at the bar.
No, and no chicken. Remember, that's a scaredy bird.
Well, it's for everyone else.
All right. So why don't I hit you guys with so I guess we didn't even get into this. So today we are talking about a heated rivalry, a very well-known rivalry to go with it, and a very well-known trophy, and that is the Paul Bunyan Trophy. And that trophy is given to the winner between my Michigan State Spartans and Joe's Michigan Wolverines. So some fun facts for you guys here. So this is the first trophy we've talked about that involves
good fun facts
that involves Michigan State. And this is one of 3 that we will talk about in future episodes. The 2 campuses are only 66 miles from each other, so they're very close. This is not like they're hours and hours away. They're very close to each other, which is cool. And have you guys ever wondered where the Spartans and the Wolverines have gotten their namesakes from? Like why they picked?
Daily, every night I wonder.
I mean, I was curious too. So why don't I give you guys some history? Why don't we start with the Spartans? So this story's origin traces back to 1925. So at the time, the school's name changed from the Michigan Agricultural College, or the MAC, to Michigan State College. And the public was asked to suggest some replacements for the former Aggies nickname, Aggie Agriculture. So that was their nickname prior to the name change. So in 1926, an on-campus group collected suggestions, and a lot of the people chose Staters as a nickname, and that beat out Bearcats, Statesmans, Bobcats, Pioneers, and Fawns.
Staters.
Ooh, the Fawns would have been nice.
Yeah. So I think it kind of goes without saying here, but the options were not exactly like great or strong.
No, I think they made the right decision.
But despite the public's majority support for the Staters, they would actually not have the final say in it. Interesting enough. So this guy, George Alderton, was a local sports editor for the Lansing State Journal. Lansing is where East Lansing, and Lansing is where Michigan State is located in. And he was an editor from 1923 to 1962, and he disliked the nickname and he refused to use it in his publications. So what ended up happening was he would frequent a restaurant, and this restaurant was owned by a Greek immigrant, and the Greek immigrant, they kind of talked about like how he was frustrated with the nickname, And this Greek immigrant was like, hey, I got the perfect name for you. And he's like, well, what would that be? And it's the nickname that has lasted the test of time. The immigrants were from Sparta, Greece. So he proposed that they just be called the Spartans. And so this Alderton then started to use Spartans in his publications. It caught fire.
So he just forced it in.
Yeah. He was dissatisfied with the
Good for him.
skaters, and he
Listen, buddy,
started a movement.
if you want grape glaze and pasticcio at this restaurant, you're gonna change that freaking name. He probably got a nice deal. He probably got a sweet deal. He's like, listen, if you make him the Spartans, grape glaze for life on the house.
Yeah. So the guy's name was Stephen
Uzo all
George,
around.
Stephen George Scofies. That was the restaurant owner, the Greek immigrant, and that was Alderton's friend. And he was the one that suggested the Spartans. Alderton ran with it, and now they are the Spartans to this day.
And what year is this?
So this happened in, I believe, 1926, right around the time. It wasn't too much later. Like staters didn't stick very long when they changed to Michigan State College. So that kind of helped too.
Well, the Michigan State staters really rolls right off the tongue there. So
yeah, I think it was a good change. And then on the Wolverines side, so in 1803, Michigan and Ohio entered into a big border dispute referred to as the Toledo War. So at the time,
notoriously fought over a piece of land there, Toledo, Ohio.
It's a great chunk.
I could be completely wrong here. I didn't research this, but I'm fairly certain I'm right on this. At the time, Ohio had the Upper Peninsula and Michigan had Toledo. And so they eventually came to an agreement that we would trade the Upper Peninsula because it didn't make sense based on where Ohio was based at the time, for Toledo. So we gave Ohio Toledo.
I do love the memes online you see every now and then. It's like shows a map of Michigan and Wisconsin and Ohio, and not Ohio, but the Upper Peninsula, and the caption is like, Wisconsin will not give Wisconsin are a bunch of bitches for not taking over this piece of land that isn't even connected to the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. It's like, what are they waiting for? Why haven't they done it yet? And it just shows like,
and how
Wisconsin
freaking like ungrateful of the Upper Peninsula to call you, of the Upers to call you guys trolls, like for taking them back from Ohio. Like, come on.
I mean, I think they just want to be part of Wisconsin, so that's on them though.
Yeah,
that's
good cheese curds. Can't blame them.
So as the two states argued over the state line, Michiganders came to be called Wolverines. So it's unclear whether Michigan natives pinned this name to show their tenacity and strength, or whether Ohioans chose the name in reference to the glutinous, aggressive habits of a
glutinous.
Wolverine.
They have a lot of gluten.
I apparently
you guys got a lot of gluten there?
Gluttonous.
Gluttonous.
Gluttonous. You can blame that on the Detroit old fashioned there. Gluttonous.
Second.
They could have gluten problems. I mean, can you prove to me they don't?
Well, I am sure I know you both. Two. You guys are my two like connections to Michigan. You guys eat plenty of gluten. So yeah, I mean you are very glutinous.
That's true.
So from there on, Michigan was labeled the Wolverine state. So when the University of Michigan was founded, it adopted that nickname because it was the Wolverine state. So there you go. That's where those two namesakes come from. And the last little fun fact I have for you before we get into the history of the rivalry and trophy is similar to last week. There are no Big Ten trophy games this week, and this game is not being played this weekend. It is actually be played on October 30th, the day before Halloween. So a couple weeks out here.
Spooky, very spooky.
Could be very big.
And since this isn't happening this week, we're going to take this opportunity to plug last week's episode and go ahead and check it out and donate to the causes.
Yep. Yes, $5 bits of a broken chair trophy. There's no A in there, even though I think there should be.
But there might be gluten.
There could be gluten. But yes, check out our episode 7. It highlights two very important foundations because the game is also kind of the trophy acts as a fundraiser as well for these two charities. So please check out that episode if you have not thus far.
And donate to Team Jack and the Minnesota Masonic Children's Hospital.
Either one.
Link in bio.
Either one or both.
Do both. Do both.
Yeah.
All right, guys. What's your first impressions of this trophy that you've seen a million times?
Oh, that's what it looks like. So I will be honest, that when I first scrolled down, I saw the base of it, and I have never seen the base because you only see the picture on the right, which the listeners can't see, but it's the players holding it up and their arms are covering the base. I just assumed it was legs on like this little tiny platform, but it's pretty chunky.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's tall, and it's like a little wooden cabinet that it sits on.
I also like how the pictures that EJ chose were of the trophy in the Spartans' possession.
You know what his drink is sitting on right now?
Listen, guys, I really struggled to find a good photo of it, in the hands of Michigan. So these pictures look great.
You could have looked at it in 2019.
Well, they didn't take good enough pictures that day. It's not that they didn't have it. It's that the pictures weren't of good quality.
Okay.
But yeah, so you have Paul Bunyan. So Paul Bunyan hits himself, which
in a power stance.
He has a power stance.
Yeah, that's a nice
axe on the ground
between his legs.
Betwixt his legs.
Yeah.
So that is 4 foot tall, and the base.
It's definitely bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah,
this is nothing new to me. I always knew. That's why I loved it, because I thought I don't know what this little emblem is here on the log, but I love that it's like a big log.
It almost looks like the Marine crest.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I can't see it too closely in this picture. I don't know if there's any more.
I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, honestly, it's crazy to me that it's that tall. It's 4 foot. I thought it was just because you only see the top of it, the Paul Bunyan part. You don't see that he's standing on this like rock with.
I mean, it's a Big Ten trophy. It has to be huge, or else it's gonna get stolen.
Yep. So it's he's 4 feet and the base is 5 feet. So he's 9 feet tall when he's on display.
Wow.
Which is big.
He's a big boy.
All right. So
he's a big man. That's for sure.
That is for sure. So why don't we get to the history of the rivalry? So the first matchup between these two schools was in 1898, and Michigan won that game 39-2. The next matchup, Michigan won 119-0. We'll get to that a little later as well. Yeah. And then the third matchup, Michigan won 46-0.
It's getting better.
Yeah. So through 3 games, the Spartans scored 2 points. It was a great start to the rivalry. So the series, as it stands now, Michigan leads it 71 wins to 37 losses to 5 ties. But I will say 33 of those wins came before Michigan State was a real program and joined the Big Ten.
You tell them, buddy.
They were still the Michigan Agricultural College, a bunch of farmers. Might as well have been high school kids.
They should have been big and strong then, right?
You would think.
Yeah, we're not Corn Huskers. We don't have enough corn in Michigan there to.
No,
you got to plant gluten though. I mean.
So since Michigan State joined the Big Ten, the lead for Michigan is actually 40 wins to 28 losses to 2 ties.
You see, so it's a little bit more, Joe. He's fudging the numbers up, Joe.
I'm not. If it's one of those things. Once Michigan State was good enough to be a real conference, it's been a little bit more respectable. It's still a 12-win gap, but. Obviously, when
that's true, it'd be like if Alabama was like, "Hey, Samford, let's play for a trophy every year."
Right. I mean, honestly, that was.
What year did they join the Big Ten? I guess 40, 60, 70 years ago.
Yes, in 1957. Or sorry, 1953, not 57. So Michigan State only lost 2 games in a 4-year span leading up to the Big Ten, joining the Big Ten. So I think that was kind of how they really. Built the resume was they had a 4-year span under the legendary coach Biggie Munn. What's
Biggie Munn 10?
Yeah. And Munn Arena is the hockey arena. That's what that's named after, is Biggie. So Michigan State had a 4-year span of national success, and that kind of led to them joining the Big Ten.
And then we'll start counting, apparently.
Yeah, and then it counts. All right, so the history of the trophy. So this story starts in 1953. But before we continue, let's get to Mike's favorite segment.
Mike, what was it like?
What was life like in 1953, Mike? Do you know?
In Michigan.
I like there's like
Or in the US.
there's like a piano music and harp music in my
Yeah, we
head.
need
like
to
fading.
we need to step this up. We
need
should have
a little
little,
bit. What was life
little music
like?
here.
Is anybody really good with GarageBand and want to like work for free? Because
Any of you three people know GarageBand. We got Doyle, Dave Root, anyone
Dave
else?
Groot,
Dave
Bott.
Root.
Oh,
Dave
Dave
Bott,
Bott too.
and Dave Bott. Shout
out Dave Root, Dave Bott, all the Daves.
Chad Ball, Dan
Chad Ball.
Jurgle. Do you guys know?
Chad's not good at GarageBand. I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess he's not his specialty.
Mom.
All right,
Need help
guys.
moving? Chad's your guy.
Yeah, definitely. I can attest to that.
Mhm.
1953 was a great year. So let me tell you. Let me tell you guys what happened.
Do you want another old Detroit old fashioned?
I love when EJ gets all juiced up. It's the best.
All right. So 68% of all television sets in the United States tuned into I Love Lucy to watch Lucille Ball give birth.
Well, Ricky.
68%. Now, mind you, there's probably like 5 channels, but still,
Yeah.
that's huge. That's like
That's
Truman
actually a
Show-esque.
little low when you consider the number of channels that were out there. So
That's true. So Walt Disney's 14th animated film, Peter Pan, premieres in Chicago in 1953. I know. The first Chevy Corvette was built in Flint, Michigan, which was awesome.
ran on gluten.
Ran on gluten. Burger King opens its first restaurant in Jacksonville, Florida. Shout out Urban Meyer.
Burger.
The King.
The King, the BK King, 1953.
BK Lounge.
Yes. The New York Yankees defeated the Brooklyn Dodgers 4-2 to win their 16th World Series title in baseball. And if I remember correctly, 1957, we talked about this in a past podcast, was when the Brooklyn Dodgers moved to Los Angeles. So
yeah,
this
we
was
did.
right before the move. Little inner city rivalry there. Pretty crazy now that I think about it, to think that the Yankees, the Dodgers, and the Giants were all there. I guess I kind of forgot the Yankees were there. So that's kind of cool. And then the last little fun fact I have for you for 1953 was Hugh Hefner published his first issue of Playboy.
I like how I like.
Urban Meyer was there buying that.
Yeah.
He's probably wasn't.
I like how like these documentaries are coming up. Like, Hugh Hefner was like a scumbag and all this stuff. It's like,
really?
I thought we
That
just
guy?
accepted that as a society. Like, I just thought
He
it was
lived in a
given.
mansion with 30
Right.
women who
Like
were all
these
his
like,
girlfriends.
Documentaries are coming out. It's like,
Really? That guy was a
yeah.
bad guy. Huh?
Yeah, maybe come out with a documentary about how like the sky is blue and the earth is round too. Like stunning facts here.
Well, that's the second part there is
That's
a little
true. Aaron
Controversial.
Foster would
Kyrie
have something
Irving.
to say about that. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm kind of surprised that needs a story. I mean, it's the guy was in his pajamas with 20-year-olds. A cycle.
This guy's a bad guy.
Right.
This guy, the guy
So-
with the sex grotto.
Right.
No.
So that first issue sold 54,000 copies at 50 cents each. There you go. Only
good start.
54,000 men were able to buy that and keep that away from their wives.
Yeah, that's a good start for that year.
Urban Meyer doesn't need to hide his from his wife.
No, he does not. All right, so let's get back to this trophy. So this story begins in 1953, like I had mentioned, when the then governor of Michigan and a University of Michigan alumni, G. Menon Williams, decided to welcome Michigan State to the Big Ten by introducing the Paul Bunyan Governor of Michigan Trophy. No one calls it that full name.
Yeah.
I didn't even know.
Is that
was
is
full
that still
name.
the official name?
I think so,
Huh.
technically. So the trophy itself was a welcoming gift to Michigan State for joining the Big Ten. So like I mentioned before, it's a 4-foot tall wooden statue of Paul Bunyan, the giant lumberjack of American folklore, if you are not familiar. And he is mounted on a 5-foot wood base, but can be unmounted. And
Maybe
happens
that's
every
why.
time.
If they take it off the base, maybe that's why I haven't seen it before.
Yeah, I mean, I think the base only goes to wherever Michigan or Michigan
just
State
to
on
store it.
display.
That
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Okay,
Yeah, they're not lugging that.
that's
thing
why
on
I've
the
never seen
field.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it reflects why Paul Bunyan, outside of the fact that the Midwest just loves Paul Bunyan, and there's another Paul Bunyan trophy we're going to talk about later in this podcast. The reason why Michigan did it was because it reflected Michigan's history as a major lumber producing state back at the time. So, Mike, I don't know if you know this, but Midwesterners love Paul Bunyan, but they also love his big blue ox. Babe. I don't know if you guys are you familiar? How big of a deal is Paul Bunyan or Babe in Pennsylvania? Because I know in Michigan, like,
oh yeah, you're taught in school, like first grade.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely
too?
learned about the tall tales early on. I was obsessed. Pecos Bill, Paul Bunyan, John Henry. I was obsessed with all of those, tall tales.
But you were taught, or you?
Yeah, we definitely learned about it, and then I remember like I must have had like a couple books. I even had like trading cards. I don't know if they came with the books, but like, yeah, I mean, like I was a big freaking nerd. So like, yeah, I mean, I loved reading those tales. So,
okay.
I gotcha. So a few states actually claim that the story of Paul Bunyan and Babe is theirs. So it's not, there's no like real origin, like one origin story. It's multiple different origin stories in multiple different states that claim it. And those states include Minnesota, shocker, Wisconsin, shocker, Michigan, shocker, and Maine. So I know you didn't go up. I know you didn't go up to Bangor, but Bangor has this.
Who is she?
This big Paul Bunyan statue with Babe as well. So Maine.
No, well, we flew into Bangor.
Oh.
So I didn't see it. I mean, I didn't see that.
It's a missed opportunity. I probably should have just told you so that you could have taken a picture with it.
Maine though, like but honestly, whenever I think of Paul Bunyan, I think of like Montana. Like,
I mean, Maine has a bunch of trees and stuff, right? There's probably a big
every state's most states have a bunch of trees.
I think of like
here.
Montana, the Dakotas.
Got 100 trees out there.
Well, I think of Michigan, I think of gluten. I don't think about like lumber, you know.
Yeah. Very glutinous.
Because you haven't been to the best part, the upper part of the lower part of Michigan.
Up north is what it's really called.
The fingertips.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here's a little thing here, and I'm interested to see if you guys know this. So in 1958, Walt Disney Studios produced Paul Bunyan as an animated short musical, and it featured Thurl Ravenscroft. Do you guys know who Thurl Ravenscroft is? Because I sure did.
Sounds like someone from Harry Potter.
No, it isn't. Mike, do you know who Thurl Ravenscroft is?
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like Rowena Ravenclaw's uncle. I don't know.
So I guess I can blame me knowing this on my wife, who is obsessed with Christmas music. And so we have Sirius XM, and anytime we travel for the holidays, it's just the Christmas channel over and over. But Thurl Ravenscroft sings "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch."
Oh, really? That's the guy.
Yes. So I obviously, because I've seen it on my car, that's a name you don't forget.
No.
Something I didn't realize was not only does he sing this, but he also was the voice actor for Tony the Tiger.
No way. Nope. Don't believe that for 1 second.
Yeah, he passed away in the 2000s.
If it's listen, no. There's not a chance.
Facts are facts.
Yeah, they're great.
Facts are facts. They're great.
They are great. What Frosted Flakes what was your favorite cereal growing up? Frosted Flakes, I think, were definitely mine. Like for a minute there.
I like the sweets. I like Cocoa Krispies.
You seem like a big Cocoa.
I was a Cocoa Pebbles. And then I would always have, which I think one had salmonella and the other one is the cereal with the most sugar. But I'd always go to my grandma.
What cereal were you eating that had salmonella?
Sugar Smacks with the frog.
What? That frog was peddling salmonella?
About 2 or 3 years ago, not when we were kids, but recently they had to have like a whole recall for
Sugar Smacks.
Yes, so Sugar Smacks and then Golden Krispies, which are the same thing, but one is owned by Kellogg's and one's owned by Post. They're the same cereal.
I think Sugar Smacks are now called Honey Smacks, or were they called Honey Smacks the whole time?
No, I think it's a different. It's like how there's Cinnamon Toast Crunch and French Toast Crunch. I think it's a different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, this is a.
It's definitely Frosted Flakes. I love that damn.
So it is a frog, yeah, on Honey Smacks, but Sugar Smacks. I don't know what year this is from, but it's got like a interesting, probably racist.
Well, you know what? My
picture on it.
grandma loved
Whoa,
clowns.
hold on.
It's a clown.
Let me see. Put it up.
It's a clown.
Oh, it's clown. I don't.
It's a scary.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna sleep tonight. That's great.
Yeah, it's very strange.
That's terrifying.
All right, so
You ate that
Another
cereal.
one. Ooh, I got another one.
Oh,
Nope,
yeah.
nope. Don't want to see that. You ate that.
Yes, I see.
What is the
Yeah,
matter
you know,
with you?
It was good.
Who sees a box
And
with
they're
that
Kellogg's.
clown on? It's like, yep,
Kellogg's.
that's appetizing.
But the traditional one's the frog. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's what
I
you
think
were
I was the frog era. I think the scary clown
free
was
inside, salmonella, safari, glow in the dark stickers. Yeah.
I am gonna close my eyes tonight and see the Sugar Smacks clown like sitting at the foot of my
Well, you
bed.
can thank one person, and he's a Sparty.
Yeah. Well, it happens.
I mean, he's what is it? Stater.
Yeah. A good old stater. Believe it or not, which is crazy to me, but at the beginning, the trophy was not very popular. The gesture was deemed by many as a political publicity stunt.
For lumber?
No, just for the governor to.
Okay, yeah, the governor's aspect of it,
right?
Which when did that drop off? Because I've never even heard that part of it. Right away.
That's a good question. Probably. I don't think people ever called it the full name.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to Cyhawk, right? No one ever calls it the Corn Association Cyhawk Trophy.
Yeah.
So
speak for yourself, pal. I respect the corn workers of Iowa.
Mike had corn for dinner.
So the trophy actually had a little fanfare for the first few years because many just deemed it as a political publicity stunt. So this part of this story is, a tale as old as time. But prior to awarding the first trophy win in 1953, Michigan enjoyed an overwhelming 33 wins to 9 losses to 3 ties, non-trophy series advantage. And so that led athletic director and former head coach at the time, Fritz Chrysler. He planned to reportedly refuse the trophy if Michigan had won the game. So he wanted nothing to do with the trophy, wasn't interested in it. But Chrysler's protest turned out to be irrelevant because Michigan State won the first trophy and afterwards displayed it in its Jennison Fieldhouse, which I really want to say was their basketball court before.
That's like that. That's like saying like, yeah, I don't want to date her anyways.
Right.
Yeah, I broke up with her.
So the following year in 1954, the trophy was left on the field for a half hour after Michigan defeated the Spartans. And Chrysler said, "We'll find a place for the trophy." And the Bunyan trophy was stored in Michigan Stadium's locker room in one of their equipment closets. So, yeah, Chrysler was really not interested in this rivalry or was not interested in this trophy. So despite winning in 1954 and 1955, Michigan did not engrave their scores onto the neglected trophy. But when Michigan State won in 1956, they engraved the Wolverines' victories of the past years on the trophy. And at that point in time, the Spartans possessed the trophy for the next 8 years, which is tied for the longest the trophy has remained at one school. And
really,
that 8 years in a row also was a part of an 11-year out of 12-year span where the Spartans won the trophy. Which is
if I had to bet on who's had the trophy for the longest time, I'd definitely say Michigan. That's surprising.
Yeah, so it's a tie. I think they both have had it for a span of 8 years.
You mean for a longer period of time at one?
Yeah,
streak?
I would think Michigan had for a long time. Yeah.
Well, you got to remember, it wasn't
right. It wasn't real.
Yeah,
it wasn't real until
they were ready to be big boys.
Right. And then I kind of just mentioned how since trophy's been introduced, the overall series has been a little closer than prior to it being introduced and prior to Michigan State being in the Big Ten. So let's move on to Sparty Watch. So this is going to give you more
Sparty Watch
to how heated this rivalry really is. So have either of you heard of Sparty Watch? Joe, have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Mike, you have not heard of Sparty Watch. So every year during Michigan Week, students in the Michigan State marching band become the unofficial guardians of the Spartan statue, which is a 9-foot 7-inch legendary, big statue of a Spartan.
I am aware of the gentleman, yes, of which you speak.
So they have what is called, and it started in the 1960s, but Sparty was vandalized by Michigan fans who painted it blue and maize leading up to the game. So then,
love that. That's like one of my favorite things in
Right.
college football, when the vandalism.
Sure.
Oh, it's the best.
It's just it makes it a real rivalry. So
Yeah,
after
really,
that happened in the 60s, without being directed, a few members of the Michigan State marching band huddled around the statue during the week of the game.
I'm just picturing these guys with their clarinets and their drumsticks just sitting out there like, not on our watch, pal.
It's exactly what it is. So basically, they're just trying to prevent Michigan students from vandalizing it. And it proved effective. And over the years, it kind of became like a rite of passage for the marching band. And they just kept passing the torch to future generations. So each year, band members continue to watch the statue, and that has earned the nickname of Spartan Watch. And so you guys can kind of see a picture of a guy that has actually, why don't you describe it, Mike?
EJ, yeah, I would love to describe it, because this looks like a freaking homeless guy.
It's like a hospital bed.
There's a fat homeless guy sitting in front of the statue. This is the guy that's going to guard it. He's got a long gray beard and he looks homeless. This is the best you guys got. What, did they have band practice and this guy had to take over? They got some bum off the streets.
So what
he does have a lot. Who is this guy? I didn't zoom all the way in. I just thought it was like a kid laying on some hospital bed.
That's a man, brother. That's a man.
That's a homeless person.
Homeless. Yeah.
He's got a gallon of water underneath him.
So typically there's like a handful of band members until like through
he's not in the band.
The early nights.
He was. And then the
in
band
1923
things went south for him, and now he's living on the streets. He'll pull out a saxophone with the case, and you can throw ones in it while he guards the statue.
Right. So eventually,
actually, if you give him a 5, they'll let you spray paint it.
And so it's just this picture, which I guess it is a guy literally sleeping on a rollaway mattress that he put out there.
We're gonna have to post this one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I am. No, brother,
they take this for real. So the entire week they'll have multiple people there during the day and mostly through the night until it's like 1 or 2 a.m. sleeping hours, in which they usually have 1 or 2 people that literally spend the night outside guarding this trophy the week of. So Sparty had been successfully painted maize and blue in 1952, 1967, 1986, 1987, 1989, and 1990. So basically that like late 80s, early 90s band sucked.
And then they got their homeless Fred.
Their guards were terrible. And so the ROTC members,
real Spartans of them.
Right.
Think of Gerard Butler and as a Spartan.
Right. Not Gerard Butler.
Not this guy with a gray beard laying on a hospital bed.
No, that's what happened. No, Joe, in 1991, they picked up a homeless guy. They starved him of heroin for like a week, and then they just put him out in front of the statue.
Groomed him. Yeah.
I mean, are you going to mess with a heroin addict?
You don't have to. You just sneak up. You just walk quietly.
No,
spray paint it and walk away.
Homeless people have great sensory perception.
Or I mean, do they though? Like I've walked past a good amount of homeless people in the city, and they do not move.
Have you tried to take one of their things or vandalize it?
Bingo.
Try it. Test it.
That's not his thing, though.
Test it.
That seems like his thing.
Test it. You're gonna.
Well, we might have to make a trip up to East Lansing.
Are you gonna do it? You're gonna try to, because there's been over the years you've had like Michigan students come up and say they're not Michigan students, right? They traveled to the game, want to take a picture with them, or we're Central Michigan universities. No, actually, they fill water balloons up with paint.
I've heard that. Smart.
So the ROTC actually takes the Friday shift so that the band members can get enough sleep because the game's played on Friday, are played on Saturday. And I just want to say, just kind of finish this out, state fans aren't innocent during this week either. There's a small vigil that takes place on the Michigan Diag where there's a brass block M, and that is often painted over with the letters S and U whenever the two teams meet as well.
I've seen that.
And that has happened as recently as 2018. So both schools play to this.
Well, yeah, that's true. And I've heard of that before. And if you want to really get into it and show it from an unbiased perspective, then you would probably show both sides protecting their equities here, right, Mike?
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I definitely looked for pictures.
Oh, well, I found one in the 30 seconds you were talking about it here.
Okay.
Michigan students in 2015 protecting their Diag M with leather couches and a tent.
No
Not
homeless,
a homeless man with
there.
a gray beard passed out with a bottle of water. That's the difference here, folks.
I mean, I guess that's a convenient time that, the picture's taken, during the day and not, when someone would be sleeping. I mean, I guess they like to sleep on couches and not beds.
What?
But
your guy's sleeping during the day. These are
kids
probably
early morning. Sure.
These are kids at night. This is 11:23 p.m. This was sent. This was taken.
I mean, they're just hanging out on some couches. I bet you they had a fun time sleeping on some couches that night.
Listen, Fred had
leather couches and a tent. They are prepared. These kids are, and there's a cop there too. They've got backup.
Well, now there's cameras that guard the statue, so it's more of a symbol. It's more of a symbol than it is a real guard like it was back in the day.
Let's just let it be known. This is how this rivalry is presented, folks.
Sure. It is what it is. We have, tradition, and you guys just have a couple of people one year that just happen to have some couches out there in a tent.
I'm so happy.
Wait, what?
This.
You have a homeless man that's laying on
what makes him homeless? He has a bed. He's trying to sleep there.
He is homeless.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Mike is
the Michigan pictures. You don't even know if those kids stuck around. They're just hanging out on a couch until it's convenient, and then they're peacing out.
Well, yeah, and your guy's sticking around for 7 years because he lives there. Hey. Not by choice. He has to.
I'll tell you, it didn't get vandalized that year. I'll tell you that.
I would guess that would get vandalized before this Diag would get vandalized with leather couches and kids playing Call of Duty on these leather couches, protecting it with a cop standing here talking with them.
All right. Well, why don't we take another quick break here, and then we'll get into some of the famous games throughout the years. All right, welcome back, everyone. Now that we, Mike and Joe have stopped attacking me on this Sparty Watch subject.
Listen, you put.
I just want an unbiased opinion.
I mean,
presenting this trophy and rivalry.
And I also want to say this absolutely was hoping it would be. Like EJ's just, filling the document with pro Spartan propaganda.
Yeah, we get one. I'm looking at it right now. I get one little tick here, 2004.
I mean, I 100% disagree with that.
Let's get into it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that Michigan State has to have since the 60s protectors of their university statues. If Michigan had this rich tradition and a name towards it, it would have been on here. So I still threw it in there.
I did find that Michigan was protecting their.
I also want to say this statue is double.
I told you they would.
This guy that on the statue here, he definitely does
high security.
Michigan just doesn't have a name.
Yeah, you got John Wick and the Equalizer protecting the Sparty there.
Look at the cake on that guy.
I'm pretty sure this next section is pretty even, and I could have definitely skewed it. So I think you guys are just going to want to have to give me my props when we're done with the section.
Let's go.
Okay. All right. So famous games throughout the years, and I'm going to be honest with you.
Famous games.
I was surprised, and I think a lot of listeners are going to be surprised at how many very famous games. And mind you, I only highlighted a couple from way back when. Honestly, because one, Michigan, there wasn't any worth mentioning to a certain point. But I was just surprised at how many since like the 90s, since like Joe and I have been alive and fans, that it kind of brought me back, down memory row. And there were way more controversial
memory row right next to memory lane. Very
why can I be on memory row?
That's fine.
Memory Boulevard
right next door. It's a little fuzzy.
Memory court.
No, that's where I go. I was just surprised at how many of these games were actually as close as they were, and just how many games had like pretty famous finishes and stuff. So
yeah, I'll second that. Like we haven't gotten into it, and I haven't even read through all of them yet. But as much as people say, like some Wolverine fans will say that it's not a rivalry or that it's it's not the important rivalry, which yeah, so Ohio State is the big rivalry for Michigan, but Michigan State is right. Well, it's the one you want to win the most. Let me say that, Mike. But
Sure.
Michigan State is second to that. So it is what it is.
No, definitely. So when we start off
Such
here,
an
so
underhanded thing to say. It's like, while a lot of Michigan fans will say this is rivalry doesn't really mean anything, I think it does. And while it really doesn't mean anything compared to our other rivalry,
I mean
that's the truth.
That's just the story of this rivalry. And
yeah, but the fact you
so
guys are just
heated.
sitting across each other from the basement right now, it's like the little bit of tension just warms my heart.
I don't think that's I don't think that's like I think he agrees 100% too, right?
Yes, I do. And I think it's now Harbaugh finally, I think, is mentioned finally, because the first couple of years he played it like a lot of Michigan coaches have in the past, where they have only called Ohio State the rivalry and then Michigan State's just another game. And I think this year, especially, he finally at the beginning of the year mentioned, and I think it's because he's on the hot seat, that Michigan State is a rivalry and finally noticed it. And
listen, guys, my whole goal on this episode is to stir the pot enough that we get like a steel cage match in the basement.
Shirtless wrestling in this basement before before we run out of time.
I want to see a chair over someone's back. I want to see some bits of broken chair. I want to see $20 bits of broken chair.
I think
that's the opportunity to plug last week's episode. If you want to donate, go to our link in bio and
again.
I think, Mike, there have been tens of opportunities for Joe and I to wrestle and break a chair over each other.
Yeah, if it's going to happen, it would have happened already, and we would kill each other.
I think,
and it would have been beat ups in 20 whatever when State came back. My parents were in town. State came back, and EJ had that dumbass sweater on, and I wanted to beat the shit out of him.
It happens, guys. All right, so these famous games. So 1902, I kind of mentioned this. We mentioned this back in the Little Brown Jug, but 1902, the Michigan team with Fielding Yost, this controversial coach on our podcast here, who definitely stole the Little Brown Jug.
The villain.
His villain. Teams. Yes, his teams were the point per minute team. So like I had mentioned earlier, that team beat Michigan State in 1902, 119-0, and they scored 119 points in 38 minutes. Historic. It's absolutely insane. Even if Michigan State was high school kids, that's still impressive regardless. Like those Michigan teams in the very early 1900s were incredible. All right, so fast forward to 1956. So a couple years.
50 years.
Yes, a couple years.
A couple 50.
A couple years into Michigan State being in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, it was so in 1956, the Spartans were ranked number 2 in the nation, and the Wolverines were ranked number 5. And to this day, this is the highest combined ranking in the series history.
I believe that. I mean, that's very high for both. Like, I don't know if that's going to happen again. That both being that high, top 5.
Yeah, that's
pretty significant.
Insane. Yeah. So after a scoreless first half, the Spartans intercepted a pass at Michigan's 38-yard line.
Oh, yeah, I remember this one.
That set up a 20-yard field goal in the fourth quarter. And the Spartans also recovered a fumble at the Michigan's 21-yard line, leading to a Spartans touchdown. So the final score at that game was 9-0. So it was a very low-scoring game, but I brought it up because, again, I don't know if we're going to ever see the
and
two
who won that
schools
one? Michigan State.
Michigan State won that one.
So the rankings were probably about right.
I guess so at that point. Yeah.
2-5, 9-0.
Yeah.
It's probably fair.
Sure. And this is something, Joe, this is actually something interesting. I didn't realize that Desmond Howard played in like the 80s. Is that true? Is this baby face?
So this came up a couple weeks ago. He was doing game day, and I mentioned to my wife, I said, "Oh yeah, he played at Michigan. He won the Heisman." And she was like, "Well, how old is he?" And I was like, "I don't know, 50s." And she was like, "What? He's
no clue.
He looks like he's like 35." And he's older than he looks for sure.
I thought for sure he was a 90s Michigan, and he was not. Nope. No clue. So in 1997, it was the 6 interception game. So in 1997, the college game day was in East Lansing as the number 5 Michigan played the number 15 Michigan State, and the Wolverines intercepted the Spartans 6 times including a crazy one-handed sideline grab by eventual 1997 Heisman Trophy winner, Joey's jersey sake here, Charles Woodson.
Was Talia playing quarterback for the Spartans at that time?
Pretty much at that point. And Michigan won that game 23-7, completed the season undefeated, and was recognized as co-national champion with the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Mike, did you hear the emphasis on the co?
I heard it. I heard it.
I still think that's I think that's insane. Like, no, not insane that Michigan is the co. I think they should have made those two teams play each other, for God's sakes. Like, before, what did they used to call it before the playoff? I can't even think about it now.
Well, I mean, it was all like back then, like you didn't have as much like interconference mingling and stuff like that, you know?
No, but what was the BCS? Oh, yeah, I just think that's crazy how you can give two teams a national championship without like even considering making them play each other.
It just it shows the lack of creativity there. Like, how hard is it to just schedule a game in a month, even a month later, a couple weeks later? Yeah,
insane. So 6 interceptions, not great, Bob. So in 2001, and
speaking of Bob,
this is the first time I like vividly remember a Spartans game. And I mean, I was 11 at the time, but in 2001, it's famous, considered clock gate, and also the Spartan Bob game. So in 2001, Michigan entered the game as the number 6 team in the nation. And with under 3 minutes left, the Spartans received the ball at midfield, trailing 24-20. And a couple of penalties, a couple of plays later, which included Michigan being penalized for 12 men on the field and Michigan State being incorrectly charged with the final timeout. The Spartans got all the way down to the red zone with 17 seconds left. And at the time, the quarterback was Jeff Smoker, crazy guy, not very good, to be honest with you. But he attempted to scramble for a touchdown with 17 seconds left, down 4, and he was stopped at the 1 yard line. And so the Spartans rush up to the line, spike the ball with 1 second left on the clock. And then the next play, Smoker threw a touchdown to TJ Duckett to win the game 26-24. But, and I will even say as a Michigan State fan, and I even remember at the time, even at 11, thinking this, but Michigan coaches, players, and even the ABC broadcasters argued that the clock should have expired before that final minute, before that final play. It was a solid, like, 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds that it hit double zeros.
It sounds similar to the Lions game last week against the Ravens with that record-setting field goal. Honestly, it just like brings back memories from a week ago. Even
it was honestly, truthfully terrible.
So and on top of that, just the name that you said, TJ Duckett, that reminds me, that is kind of who I see Walker as. Like, TJ Duckett was the man back then, and I see Walker as kind of that next better. I think he's going to be better than Duckett, but I think that's kind of what I think of when I hear that name.
So the timekeeper at the time was Spartan Bob Stellan, and
this guy's impartial.
Right. And so he stopped the clock, right? He was the timekeeper. And like I said, I think it was definitely pretty sketchy. And honestly, as a result of the game, the Big Ten changed its timekeeping policies for the 2002 season, requiring that the time be kept on the field by a neutral official.
Oh, so what? They entrust Spartan Bob to keep the clock?
Was that Spartan Bob we saw protecting Sparty on campus?
Right.
Sleeping on the...
So can we just
talk? Gotten a job in Gainesville after what we saw 2 weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago.
Can we just say that it's crazy that it took all the way to 2002 for them to have a timekeeper
past the millennium?
Not being the
crazy.
Home by the home team. Like, I think that's where
we didn't know what Y2K was going to bring, so that's why probably.
Could you also imagine like gambling back in the day? It's like if you I mean, how easy would it be to like slip some money to Spartan Bob? Like,
yeah,
for sure. So that was kind of a cool game. Not just who Michigan State wins, but it's definitely one of the first games I remember the rivalry. And I still can like picture the play and where he caught it to this day. So 2004, Braylon Edwards, one of the best Michigan, definitely receivers I ever saw. and probably arguably one of the best in school history. He leads a pretty big comeback in 2004. So despite being an underdog on the road in Ann Arbor, unranked Michigan State built up a 27-10 lead in the fourth quarter against the number 12 ranked Michigan Wolverines. So the Wolverines eventually cut the lead down to 14, and then they recovered an onside kick and went down the field to make it 27-20. And so Michigan State, so the 27-20, that touchdown was a crazy reception, 36-yard reception by Braylon Edwards. So then Michigan tied the game at 27 late on another crazy catch in the end zone by Edwards. So then Michigan scored 17 points in less than 4 minutes. And the teams traded field goals and touchdowns in the first 2 overtime periods, respectively. And then another touchdown reception by Edwards and a successful 2-point conversion put Michigan ahead 43-37. And then in triple overtime, and Michigan State failed to answer with the touchdown. I do remember this game. Edwards amassed 189 yards receiving, along with the 3 touchdown catches. Michigan's true freshman quarterback, Chad Henne, threw for 273 yards and 4 touchdowns. That game was just one of those games where all Henne did was just throw like seam routes to Edwards, and he just made crazy catches.
And folks,
it was insane.
Folks, that's the one time you want Braylon Edwards behind the wheel.
Oh, that's all right. All right, that's a low blow. No, he's still around. He's doing like media stuff for games and all that. So I don't think he's necessarily doing it for Michigan, but I think he's doing like local
takes an Uber
Michigan
to
stuff.
get there. But yep.
Yeah. Well, he rides his bike.
Yeah, that game was insane.
He borrows Spartan Bob's bike.
Right. So this leads us to this most recent era of football and one of the most famous games in the rivalry. 2007 is the little brother game. So in 2007, it marked Michigan's 6th straight win over Michigan State. The Wolverines again narrowly won with a comeback in the fourth quarter, and they won 28-24. So after the game, the Michigan team held a moment of silence for Michigan State, but that was in response to Michigan State's head coach, Mark D'Antonio, making a comment about taking a moment of silence for Michigan after their embarrassing loss to Appalachian State at the beginning of that season, which Joe, unfortunately,
it was a hot game. a lot of heat there.
So in the post-game interview, Michigan running back Mike Hart, who is now on staff as the running back coach, referred to the Spartans as the Wolverines' little brother, and Hart said, "I was just laughing." So this was after Michigan State took the lead. He said, "I thought it was funny. They got excited. Sometimes you get your little brother excited when you're playing basketball and you let him get the lead and then you come back and take it back." So this definitely was a rallying cry for Mark D'Antonio and the Spartans. And Mark D'Antonio famously responded to Hart's comments saying, "I find a lot of things they did amusing. They need to check themselves sometimes, but just remember, pride comes before the fall. This is an important game, so they want to mock us all they want to mock us. I'm telling them it's not over. So they can print that crap all they want all over their locker room. It's not over. It'll never be over here. It's just starting. I'm going to coach here for a long time. It's not over. It's just starting."
How long did he coach though? Not as long as anticipated.
He ended up coaching 2000, I think 5 or 6 to 2019. I mean,
so then it was over.
Old.
I mean, he was there. He had success. I'll back up BJ on this one. I think D'Antonio is. Being from Pittsburgh, years. Being a Pitt fan, 14, and Narduzzi 13. Coming from the D'Antonio system, and D'Antonio being close with like Saban and stuff, like D'Antonio is a phenomenal coach, and I have to I'm
not talking about his coaching. It was a very strange exit. I don't know if you followed it that closely, but it was very strange. The timing wasn't there. It didn't really help the program, I don't think. So
he put us in a bad spot. I will say, I don't think it was a surprise that he retired with like, I think a lot of people assumed he was going to retire within the next 4 years or so. Like, he was definitely at the end, but it was abrupt at a horrible time and at the bottom. So he definitely got us to the top, and then it was really starting to descend, and definitely left abruptly. But I mean, for better or
little
worse,
brother thing though, I remember that. I remember like seeing that, because I wasn't big into college football at the time, but I remember seeing that. I was like, oh, well, that's something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of plays to the fact again, like, I think when it comes to this rivalry, and I will give Joe credit, he's never been this type of Wolverines fan, but it's definitely always been Michigan fans kind of, you know, again, belittling Michigan State fans. And it's just, we finally had a coach at that time that put up and shut up. Like, he you know, he actually did something with it, had a great success against Michigan. And that just, that those comments kind of just encapsulate what that rivalry was for so many years.
That's what I was highlighting earlier. It's like, yes, this isn't, like, Mike, you laugh, but this isn't the most important rivalry for Michigan fans. Like, if you ask any Michigan fan, they're going to say, who do you want to beat? It's not Michigan State. So that's what I'm saying. It's Michigan State. Do you want to win? Yes. Is that the game you want to win? No, it's the game. So I think this rivalry is a very good one, because it's very close all the time, and like, you don't know what's going to happen year to year. Like, it could honestly, like, it could be both teams are ranked, it could be both teams are unranked, it could be one's ranked 3 and one's ranked not ranked at all. You don't know who's going to win. Like, that is just how it goes. Like,
that's why we love the sport, though, boys.
Right.
I mean, like, it really, you know, I mean, some of the stuff that we highlighted coming up this week, like, you know, Georgia's going to Auburn, tough place to play no matter what, and that is a heated rivalry, you know. So yeah, I'm totally hear you on that one.
No, and I think obviously Michigan State's to blame for all those years of not being competitive, right? So I think, especially since D'Antonio made it competitive, I think that maybe and the fact that obviously Michigan has struggled with Ohio State, I think that's changed the paradigm, where now it's not just you expect to beat Michigan State, like, it's no big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
Now it's like, crap.
Or who knows? Maybe in 20 years, we're like, oh yeah, Michigan State's the game, and Ohio State's kind of by the wayside for whatever reason, whether it more than likely because Michigan hasn't beaten them, but
yeah,
who knows? Yeah.
Now with the little brother comments, D'Antonio, the next year.
Yeah. So in 2008, D'Antonio kept his word, and the Spartan led the Spartans to victory. And that was the start of 7 victories of the next 8 in this rivalry. So then fast forward to 2012, this was probably arguably the worst game of the last, like, era of Michigan State. Michigan defeated the Spartans 12-10. So Michigan won on 4 field goals. I mean, I don't know, Joe. Obviously the Spartans lost, but I think it was just like a terrible game. Both teams were terrible.
Yeah. I mean, that game kind of was an example of those 10 or so years for Michigan. Like, those are some dark times. Like, you had the Brady Hoke era, you had Rich Rod. Yeah, you had some rough years in there. So
Rich Rod, hold on. Yeah, I have a Rich Rod story. So I was living in Pittsburgh when Rich Rod was at
West Virginia.
Yeah. Well, and it was like, just I went to West Virginia for Halloween, and West Virginia Halloween is like the best time of all time, because West Virginia girls dress up like it's Halloween every weekend. And then whenever it's Halloween, it's like just lingerie and like 10-inch heels and cat ears. It's like, yeah, I'm a cat. It's like,
if Urban Meyer's listening right now, he's booking a flight to Morgantown.
So I was down there and I had some guy talking my ear off about how Rich Rod's like the next, like, gonna take, you know, West Virginia to like the promised land and everything like that. And then you know, Pitt goes ahead and knocks off West Virginia when they're ranked what was number 2 at the time, and McAfee missed that field goal. So
then he took the big pay raise and went to Michigan and tried to bring the read option there with
it didn't work
with Nard Dog and
Nard
Gardner. Yeah. But yeah, so the
not
reason,
Andy Bernard, Denard Robinson.
No, Denard
might
Robinson.
as well have been.
So the reason why I highlighted that 2012 game, because again, it just was terrible for both sides to watch.
Yeah, it was a dark time for both, I think.
This was the 900th win all time for Michigan, and they were the first program to reach that level in college football history, which is interesting. So then going to 2013, that was the negative 48 rushing yards game. So in November 2013, in East Lansing, Michigan State dominated Michigan defensively, winning 29-6. And Michigan quarterback at the time, Devin Gardner, was sacked 7 times, and Michigan accumulated the fewest rushing yards for a game in its entire history, which was negative 48. And the Spartans also held the Wolverines to their lowest point total in the series since 1967. And that was the last time the Spartans had won by more than 20 points in the series as well. It was, that game in particular was just crazy. I mean, that was at the height of Michigan State's success, and their defense at that time was crazy. Obviously, negative 48 yards is something. I mean, that's hard to accomplish no matter who the opponent is. So obviously that was a big deal for, in the rivalry. And then 2015, Joe and I were actually together for this game.
I referenced this game earlier,
which was crazy at a Buffalo Wild Wings. So 2015 was a trouble with the snap game. So for the listeners that aren't aware here, in 2015, the game was played in Ann Arbor, and the number 12 Wolverines were led by the first-year head coach, Jim Harbaugh. And they entered the game 5-1, and the Spartans were number 7, coming in at 6-0. So it was a huge game. It was one of the first games in a while where both teams were ranked that highly, or even ranked together. It was just a lot of anticipation. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh's first year, and Michigan did score first and didn't trail the entire game until the final play of the game. So late in the fourth quarter, with the Wolverines up 23-21, Michigan State drove into field goal range, but a sack pushed them out, and they failed to convert on 4th and long. So that gave Michigan the ball and seemingly the victory. But however, Michigan State stopped them a couple of times, forced them to punt. So 10 seconds left in the game. Michigan State pressured with all 11 defenders. And this was something I didn't realize at the time, but in the research, it showed that Michigan actually did, instead of max protecting, they had still some gunners out.
They had covered.
They kept them to cover, even though we didn't have a guy deep. And then famously, the Michigan punter, Blake O'Neill, had trouble with the snap, and the ball was picked up. Come on,
say it. Say it like you want to say it. Say it like you want to say it.
He had trouble with the snap, and the ball is free.
So yeah, nice enough of these two to bring this up also at my wedding reception. That was a nice bonus for us too.
So Michigan State's Jalen Watts Jackson.
Hold on.
Scooped up the ball.
Let's iterate into that, because
I think I looked over and saw Marty Sparty Moose over there, just living it up, just enjoying the night at the wedding.
EJ looked me dead in the eyes, because I was the MC at Joe's wedding, and EJ comes up to me and says, "Hey, for my entrance, because I announced,
I'm picturing this as like a mafioso, like drug deal."
Biggest grin on his face. He's like, "Listen, I'm gonna need you to do the trouble with the snap thing," and he's like, just say her names, and we're gonna come out, and then she's gonna hike me the bouquet, and then you're gonna do, "Oh, he has trouble with the snap," and
no, it wasn't a bouquet. I know very clearly what it was. He came prepared with a plastic football.
and listen here, like Mike just alluded to, there was 2 people here. There was a bridesmaid who was also a Spartans fan, who was Zenaida was the maid of honor.
Best girl, yeah, maid of honor.
the best girl here. She was all about it. She's a Spartans fan. As soon as I mentioned it to her, her eyes light up just like mine did, and it was just something that we.
Yeah, she definitely didn't watch that game. She had no idea what you're talking about. But
EJ is expecting a child.
She's like,
and he was less excited to tell me that he's going to have a daughter than he was to say, "I'm going to do the trouble with the snap thing for my entrance."
Chloe, I hope you hear this one day.
So the funny thing was, it wasn't even just for Joe. Like I was just as
Anna really cared.
No, I was equally as excited to see the look on Joe's dad's face, who I've watched a few of these games, including that one.
Yeah, we were Randy. They were in town for that game. Yeah, beat ups. Yeah.
So yeah, that was so. Like we kind of alluded to, the punter fumbled the snap and then tried to like frantically punt it. But by that time, the Spartans defenders knocked it out of his hands and they scooped and scored literally as time expired. And so they won 27-23.
Jalen Watts-Jackson broke his hip, bringing that one back to the house.
I think it was his collarbone.
Whatever.
Yeah, you can see that his.
Oh yeah.
The Spartans were trying to get him up and excited, and he was like screaming and trying to.
Dog, no, I'm broken.
And right. I'm still not convinced. Like, if you look back, I'm not convinced that there weren't any missed calls in that play. Like, you're telling me there wasn't a block in the back or a hold. I'm not going to buy it.
I'm not sure. All I know is what I was actually surprised because I remember Michigan leading from start to finish.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was a hold or a block in the back. I clearly remember
all I remember is the minkest looking kid in the stands in the full surrender cobra.
Surrender cobra.
And you know what? They showed him for years, and that's what I mentioned. I think a couple episodes ago. I don't remember who it was. There was an upset and they showed some other, was it Wisconsin? I think it was Wisconsin, Notre Dame or Penn State, Notre Dame, Penn State. They showed the Wisconsin fans and I was so happy to see them move to a new fan base that looks miserable. Cause yeah, that poor kid, he's probably, I don't know, 30 now. And yeah.
So what surprised me here about that game also was that even though Michigan State didn't lead at any point until that final play, they outgained Michigan in the contest 386 yards to 230, which was crazy to me because I said, I remember it being just start to finish Michigan, in the lead, which that kind of surprised me. I didn't realize that fact. All right. So the next game, 2017. Again, no idea at the time. I mean, maybe I remember it at the time, but I didn't remember it now. It was the first night game between the two schools. So Michigan and Michigan State met on October 7th, 2017. And that was the first night game in the series history. Michigan came into the game ranked number 7 and 4-0 on the season. And the Spartans came in unranked, but were 3-1. And their only loss at that point was to Notre Dame in a pretty close game in East Lansing. So after a Wolverines field goal, Michigan State quarterback Brian Lewerke ran 13 yards for a touchdown, and then later threw like a screen pass for 16 yards. So Spartans led at half 14-3. And what makes this game kind of infamous was the second half. It was just heavy rain and winds. It was disgusting. Like neither team could move the ball. Neither team could pass the ball. It was just an absolute mess. And Michigan ended up scoring a touchdown in the third quarter to bring it closer to bring it to 14-10. And then ultimately Michigan had a chance with the Hail Mary at the end of the game. And the Michigan State middle linebacker knocked it out of the end zone to secure the win. And again, this was a game that I watched at Joe's house with his parents. And I distinctly remember his dad saying he will never watch another Michigan State game with me ever again, because I had watched 2 crazy games in a row with him. So that was a pretty crazy one. And then 2018, there was a pregame skirmish. So Michigan defeated Michigan State 21-7 in that game. The Wolverines just completely dominated. They gained 395 yards, held the Spartans to 94.
Is that the game where they locked arms and walked across the field?
Yes, it is.
Was that the game where Devin Bush was like kicking up
a little like a kitty cat and a
okay. Hey.
Yes,
he's a Pittsburgh Steeler now. Watch how you talk about
Yeah,
Devin
but if
Bush.
you're out there warming up, stretching, and you see a 50 guys locked arms walking towards you, like knowing that you're there doing that, like, what do you expect? Yeah, they're not going around you. There's 50 of them with their arms locked. Like,
this was
I don't
a
know.
deliberate rivalry action. So the Spartans, as Joe has mentioned, walked arms linked, and they did do this as a pre-game ritual every game under D'Antonio, where they all link arms, walk across the field. However, they did it and knowingly did it while when they knew Michigan fans or Michigan players were out warming up.
I love the way he's talking to you, Chip. I loved it. It was fantastic.
Let's just say D'Antonio wasn't this innocent angel that EJ's trying to make him out to be.
No, I have some quotes here. So the Spartans left the field once they did kind of get in a skirmish with the Michigan players that were trying to warm up. And then Devin Bush, the middle linebacker, tore up the Spartans logo with his cleats at midfield. And then after the game, Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh claimed that Spartans clotheslined one of the players and ripped headphones off another, and added, in quotes, "total Bush league." Apparently, D'Antonio was 5 yards behind it, all smiling. And then D'Antonio referred to Harbaugh's comments as BS. And then after this, the Big Ten issued reprimands to both teams, including a $10,000 fine against Michigan State, having found that the Spartans violated the conference.
Screw that. Let the boys play, man. This is a rivalry game. Let it go.
I get it. But so they fined them for violating the conference's sportsmanship policy by walking across the field and initiating contact. It was really initiating the contact with the players who had a legitimate reason to be on the field. It wasn't like he
was literally stretching at center at the middle of the field, by himself. Like, well, I mean, there were other players out there, but he wasn't.
Right. The Spartans could have picked a different time when they knew,
or said, "Oh, let's wait till they're done."
I'm not saying that the Spartans are blameless. I love what they did. I love the way they're talking to you. And if Devin Bush wants to tear up the field before the game, love that too. I love it. This is what it's all about. There's pure good old fashioned hate here, and I love it.
100%. And I think a lot of the fans felt the same way. It's not like anything resulted in injuries or anything crazy, but obviously it was just another, piece of the history of the rivalry. So the conference reprimanded D'Antonio for failing to take actions to mitigate a foreseeable conflict from occurring. And then Bush also was reprimanded for grinding his cleats into the Spartans logo.
Into their couch. They got for another one. Rich bastards.
Right. And then last year it was the 2020 Halloween upset. So due to the pandemic, the game was rescheduled and played for Halloween for the first time ever. Michigan was, 21-point favorites going into this game, and 21.5-point favorites. But Michigan State found some success throwing the ball deep and beat the Wolverines. And this was the first win for Mel Tucker as the head coach at Michigan State. And it was the first Michigan State head coach to beat Michigan in his first season since Nick Saban.
Okay, let's rewind a little bit here. Who are these odds makers for this game? Because Michigan had 2 wins in 2020. Who's making it? What did you say? 21, 23?
It was 21.5, but you have to remember Michigan at that time went on the road against Sky Yuma and rowing the boat and defeated Minnesota 49.
One win. I mean, come on.
So
I remember,
I think, what boosted.
Yeah, but 20 points. That's a lot of points.
I remember a couple weeks
prior, national bias.
I went to Lowe's with EJ to get paint because I was helping him paint his basement. I said, listen, Mel Tucker's first season, like, what's success for you? And you're like, beating Michigan. The one in infinity. It doesn't matter. You beat Michigan. That's good first season.
Yeah, I mean,
they had 2 wins too, and one of them's Michigan. So yeah, I'm sure they're thrilled.
Yep. No, and it was one of those games where obviously Michigan shouldn't have been favored as high. I mean, that's kind of the double-edged sword of the national media's perception of Michigan. But it's definitely a surprise win. Disappointing for Harbaugh, especially into his 6th year. And I mean, this obviously sets up a pretty crazy 2021 game that could have potentially 2 top 10 ranked teams. Right now, Michigan's ranked 9th. Yeah. Michigan State's ranked 11th.
Who does State have before this game?
at Rutgers, at Indiana, and then a bye
So
week.
they should be top 10, I would think, by then.
And then Michigan is at Nebraska, and I can't remember who else they have.
Yeah, Nebraska's they're not a pushover, so we'll see. I would put more money on Michigan State being in the top 10 than I would Michigan not dropping out.
No, definitely. Okay, why don't we take one more quick break, and then we will wrap up with our final thoughts, our ratings. Yeah, let's do this real quick.
Let's do it.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So why don't we try and wrap up this episode here? So why don't we give some final thoughts? But before we do that, I'm going to give my coworker's thoughts. So my coworker, Nathan, he is a Michigan State grad. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to join the pod today because he was actually up in East Lansing watching the Spartans beat the Hilltoppers.
Big listener?
He is. He's a big listener. He's actually a big history kind of guy as well. So I think he's enjoyed the history of the trophies. Nice. Big football fan. And he's going to be joining us next week, actually, because we will be talking about another Michigan State trophy.
Nice.
Cool. So he did send me his thoughts. So why don't I get through these thoughts quickly, and then we'll kind of give.
Before you start, this isn't him laying on the bed protecting Sparty, is it?
It is not. He did.
Okay.
He did say that when I brought up the Sparty watch, he's like, "Oh yeah, the band nerds." So he was
just so you aren't protecting it.
He was not one of those. On the Spartan watch. So this is his thoughts on this game and the trophy. So he said, first of all, trophy is great. It detaches from the base, which I know the pod loves, and it's easy to carry around the field after a victory. And he says something I believe Michigan State was the first to do. I want to say it was in the locker room until D'Antonio era, maybe 2011. Don't know if that's true. His
history. Okay.
That's what his thoughts were. Something that I didn't bring up because I knew he was going to bring it up here. But the winning team always puts their helmet on, Paul, which is always looks funny, is a great touch. So for the fans, they literally, one of the players will take their helmets off and put it on Paul, Mr. Paul Bunyan. And it's just another cool way to kind of just parade that trophy around. And he also says it's kind of weird that it's Paul Bunyan trophy since Paul Bunyan is not a Michigan specific folk tale.
What is it?
Well, I know. And
where is he from?
He is actually from Illinois.
Okay.
But I think he had moved around a couple of times. But he's from Illinois, Indiana, that area. And I think he's lived.
So he probably learned about it in grade school.
Yes. And then he mentions obviously that the other states that the Paul Bunyan legends are. Obviously, like I had mentioned, there's another trophy, a Paul Bunyan themed trophy coming up later in this season. So stay tuned. And he also said he feels the rivalry is somehow underrated nationally, and I think I kind of agree.
Yeah, I do too. It's a big rivalry. Like it's very competitive. I will say that. And I think there's something to be said for in-state rivalries. Like we've done a few that aren't in-state. And I think that just shows like.
I would put this in-state rivalry up against any other one. And I know there's some great ones. I think this one's at least in the conversation. I'm not going to say it's the best, but I think it's in the conversation.
Sure.
Definitely.
Sure.
So he said it got to the point when he was at Michigan State, which was from 2010 to 2013, where and this was kind of one of the worst eras for Michigan, definitely in this rivalry. He said that there was a bunch of people beginning to talk about whether or not Wisconsin was the true rivalry, since those games tended to be more competitive. He says, obviously that's nonsense. And he in kind of my spirit as well, said I would go 1-11 every year as long as that one win was against Michigan.
Hell yeah.
And at least I'd be happy. So that kind of sticks. And then he said he was in the stands for the 2013 game, said it was the single greatest football experience of his life, said it was like 45 degrees and drizzly. Obviously we had mentioned that's the negative 48 rushing yards. game. And then Jeremy Langford, which ended up being a pro, was the running back at the time, and he had a big game. That one, he obviously said after he graduated, the 2015 game is arguably one of the most iconic games. And then he will say, this is how it'll end. He said, one thing I will proudly say is that win or lose, Michigan State's helmets and colors will always be better than Michigan's. Go green. So that was his kind of parting thoughts. Obviously, Joe, you're going to be able to have a rebuttal next week when he's on the pod, but that was kind of his.
No rebuttal. That's all opinion. Like,
right. It's Spartan grad's opinion, clearly.
Like you change it up multiple times a year. So clearly it's not that great.
That is true. I had the unfortunate, I had to, unfortunately, for 2 years of my high school football career, had to wear that winged helmet.
Yeah,
my high school had that winged helmet.
And how'd that go? They were good.
They were good. And they have won a state championship 2 out of the last maybe 4 or 5 years. So, all right, that's going to do it for us here. Let's get to our rankings. Looks. So for the listeners, again, we rank on a scale from 1 to 5. Looks. 1 to 5. History of the rivalry, 1 to 5. The history of the trophy, 1 to 5, and then the history of the rivalry on a scale of 1 to 5. And then overall, do we put in a bottom tier, middle tier, top tier? So Joe, actually, why don't we start with Mike?
Yeah.
Nope. I want to go last.
I think we got to start with someone who's has no connection to it.
No way.
We don't. That's not fair if we sway you.
I feel very strongly, and I think you guys know that I am not going to be swayed by your opinions. I want you guys.
Joe,
to go
you
first.
go, and then I'll go after.
Okay. All right. What are we starting with? So looks. Yeah, I think it's a 4.5. It's solid. I honestly did not know there was the base to it. I've never seen it up close. I've never been on the field, but clearly it can come off the base. I think that's very cool. I didn't even know that it could do that. I didn't know it had a base. So, but the history is there. It's got the axe. It's the stature of Paul is great. It's just a traditionally sound trophy. So I'll go with 4.5.
History of the trophy.
There's not a lot of kind of history that goes with it. It's not too juicy. So I'll go probably it's been around for a while. I'll go 3. It's not anything crazy, but they didn't have to change it. There wasn't anything offensive with it. So let's stick with a solid right down the middle. Go with 3.
Okay. And rivalry?
So are we talking rivalry overall, or are we talking rivalry from the 50s or whatever you said?
We can go overall. We can do the history of it.
I'm just giving you a hard time. The rivalry itself it's a 5. Like everybody cares about this to some extent. If you ask one side that if the Michigan State game matters, that everyone's going to say yes. So it doesn't matter who you ask; they're going to say yeah, it does. Does it matter as much as one other game? Maybe not, but it definitely matters. It's one that you definitely want to win each year. So,
and then overall, where do you put it?
It's a high tier. Yeah, it's top tier. It's one that you see it and you're like, oh, that's the Paul Bunyan, and like you recognize. I mean, and maybe I'm biased because I'm from Michigan and I've been tracking this for my whole life, but I feel like it's one that you see it and you're just know exactly what it is as soon as you see it. Whereas some of these other ones, I see it and I'm like, what the hell is that? Or who even plays for this thing? So I think this is one that whether you are familiar with the story of Paul Bunyan or not, you know what it is and who's involved.
For sure. So looks, it's a 5 for me. I mean, and maybe this is a bias, but like Joe kind of alluded to, the fact that it can detach. It's Paul Bunyan, which is pretty unique. It's always carried on the field. You can put a helmet on him. It's definitely something that is just really fun. I love how he looks. History, 2.5. It is kind of a dry history. Nothing too exciting there.
Yeah.
The rivalry, it's a 5. I mean, not only is it an in-state rivalry, but it's heated. And again, maybe it's just our Michigan bias, but I can tell you that even if Michigan fans will tongue-in-cheek to try and annoy Michigan State fans, say that it's not a rivalry. I can tell you there isn't a Michigan fan that likes to lose to State.
No, it's a rivalry. It's just,
right.
like I said, I don't think it's the biggest rivalry that we have. And that's not a knock on Michigan State. It's just, it is what it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, considering where the program, obviously Ohio State's an elite program, as much as it sucks to say that, they're always good. And those Michigan games for a while were very competitive.
I don't know if it's even that they're elite, because like Michigan hasn't been competing with them for years. So I don't know. It's just it just snowballed, I think.
Yeah, I think the game when it had two legendary coaches at the time.
Yeah.
Has kept
that's what I mean. It's not like, oh, Ohio State's better than Michigan State, so that's why the rivalry is bigger. I think it's just the history there with the time. At those times, it was important and huge games for each team. So
for sure. And Joe kind of alluded to this too. If we're looking 20 years in the future and Michigan doesn't end up competing with Ohio State anymore, which honestly none of the Big Ten is at this point, maybe that changes. But I still think it's a 5 rivalry. For me, it's definitely heated. It's definitely a game that both sides look forward to, are definitely angry when they lose and definitely boast about the win when they win. So it's a top tier for me, 100%. Mike, let's hear your un-Michigander thoughts.
Yes, as the only non-troll as part of this podcast group. Yeah, I mean,
you're definitely south of the bridge.
Yeah, I mean,
I am absolutely south of the bridge, baby.
You're an honorary troll.
I'll take it. I've been called worse. Yeah, I mean,
that's a compliment.
Yeah, looks fair enough. Looks, it's definitely a 5. I mean, EJ, I think you hit on all the right points. Like, it's cool. Like, the big superhero stance that Paul Bunyan's in with the axe between his legs.
Mm-hmm.
I love like the big stand that's on, like carrying around the field. You always see this every year. Like, I think this is one of those rivalries in all of college football where people recognize it being carried around the field and the helmet on top. Like, love that. And one thing I wanted to ask, do they paint the pants?
So
like, if you win, do you paint
I don't
pants?
think so. I think maybe they touch it up to like,
I've seen
the reason why
like green and yellow pants and blue pants. I think
it's green pants. I've seen Michigan put like yellow pants over top of it to cover, because I think it's just naturally green.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything intentional, I don't think, at the time.
Okay. That's one thing I was waiting for.
I have seen pictures of Michigan like having like pants retrofitted to put over to cover the green, which obviously makes sense.
I love that. I love that.
But not painted.
No, not painted.
I mean, history of the trophy, I think it's probably like a 3. Like, I agree. Like, it's not like the cannon, like, or the jug or the bucket. Like, they all had like, some good history behind it, I thought. So
this wasn't stolen or
cannon, but yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, but like, I almost and really. I would have had it at 2 if I like. Part of it is like, I feel like the fact that the schools go and try to paint like the statue or like paint their respective statues.
So
like
the rivalry,
yeah. Well, okay. So I guess what I was saying is that like it could be higher than a 3 for me if like they tried to somehow vandalize the statue or the trophy as opposed to
the trophy itself.
Yeah, I think that's kind of been for whatever reason been off limits because they're not gonna, I don't know, vandalize it. It's not, and I think that's because it's not a permanent being at one of the colleges.
That's true. That's true.
All right, and then the rivalry.
Yeah, and it's 5. I mean, so many good stories throughout the year that you're able to share. Like, this definitely, I know it's near and dear to both of you guys, but like, I mean, it's true. Like, of all the other games that we played, none of them has this type of like history. So, like, Little Brother is something I remember watching like live in person. I was like, how about that? So yeah, it's a 5. It's a high. So
yeah,
really
enjoyed
all
this be one. Present at your house, I believe, for this game.
Yes. So that's right. We will all be watching together. The 3 of us.
My dad will not be present.
No, the 3 of us have not watched it together. I've watched it with Mike. I've watched it with Joe. This will be the first time those 2 are together in a room for this game. It is going to be nerve-wracking, and
I might start an OnlyFans account just to like live stream this.
And the game time hasn't been released yet, right?
No, I assume it's probably going to be a noon because that's typically what Fox likes with their instead of putting games in prime time, Fox likes to put their best games at noon. So I assume it's going to be a noon game. It is going to be in East Lansing. The game will not be played this weekend. Like we had mentioned before, it's going to be played on October 30th. We will make sure to preview this game and give you updated rankings where the teams are when we do talk about when we do release our episode. That is that weekend. We're going to have 2 games to talk about there, but yeah, definitely.
Is that it? Are we doing, because I have something I want to add in.
Yeah,
here.
Go ahead. Final thoughts, guys.
Yeah, final thoughts. Well, I don't have any final thoughts on the rivalry. It's final thoughts on something else. So, Joe, if you have something on the rivalry, please go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All right, I'm going to stare right at the camera here for the listeners, or for the viewers on YouTube, and for the listeners, I'm talking directly to you. This is a important reminder. Last week, when we talked about the $5 bits of broken chair, we said, send us your receipts when you donate to Team Jack and the Minnesota Masonic Children's Hospital. Link is in our bio. I will repost the link on Instagram story. I'll repost the link as part of this week's episode. Donate and send us your freaking receipts. Guys, this is a very important cause. It's a great trophy. It is a great rivalry. Do your part, chip in, send us your receipts, and let's do something cool. Let's try to get some money raised for these people here. Come on. I'm looking at you, listeners. You can see me. I'm speaking at you directly. Come on. Let's go, guys.
Let's do it, guys.
Let's get some donations.
Let's do it. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us this week. So follow us on Instagram at whiskers.whiskies, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our Saturday AM betting posts. Please send us your favorite bets for the weekend. Sharing is always caring, folks.
Always.
I would appreciate it. Sometimes one of us has 60 bets, and I'm sure that person would love to hear your input.
Was a wild Saturday for me. It's 61 actually, and we were up $13, which, I mean, that's the best Saturday I've ever had. So it's so fun. It's the best sport of all time. Love college football.
All right, guys. So join us next week when we talk about another classic trophy, the old brass spittoon. From Mike and Joe, I'm EJ. Always remember, too much of anything is bad, but too much good whiskey is barely enough.
Cheers, boys.